across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you, just after 4 o'clock. Thank you to Ian Collins, my wife's favourite radio presenter. Back tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 4. The kids are still listening. Ollie, Iris, we're on. Thanks for tuning in. Happy St Patrick's Day. It is St Patrick's Day. I phoned, or rather I had a text message from one of my many children this morning, Alice, who's 21, at about 10 past 8. So I rang her up. She was at a party. Students at a party already at 10 past 8. God, I feel old. That'll get me moaning about the ones that don't want to work because they're all mentally ill. It's also a Geordie bank holiday. Obviously, you'll all know my second team. Most of the best friends in my life live in Newcastle. What a day that was at Wembley yesterday. 73 years of it out the window. I don't care that it was the Carabao Cup. We'll call it the League Cup. They won silverware. Great, great news. And so much going on in the world. We recovered from Cheltenham. I don't know what you want to talk about. James Price is on the way. What are you doing? I mean, look, you know, what do you want to talk about? Welfare benefits? I've obviously read this completely wrong because I will absolutely support the Labour Party. And I mean this, hand on heart, the Prime Minister and the health guy, what's he, Wes Streeting, if they actually go ahead and do these cuts, because it is exactly what this nation needs. We pay out too much to too many people for doing bugger all. This is the same day, genuinely, that we find out that millions of young Brits are not working because of mental health. And this is one of those subjects you feel like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, people will get upset. Can I just say, being very honest about my position after what happened to me some years ago, and I'm glad that people talk about mental health. I'm glad that people are able to be that honest. But I do think we're getting to a point, said it to Ian just then, where people are starting to make an excuse. And you try telling me, to my mother in the Second World War, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work today, I'm feeling a bit anxious. Just get up ill and go to work. That's the way it was. Also, asylum backlog bulges. That will surprise you. Millions. I mean, hundreds of them. I mean, loads of them. Just ridiculous. Who's got a plan? We're going to smash the boats. No, the only person who's been prosecuted, right, was that couple who came back to England with a motorhome and found one strapped underneath they knew nothing about. They were fined 1,500 quid. We seem to be nowhere nearer sorting this out. And actually, we've got 1 million foreigners, we'll not call them illegal migrants, we've got 1 million foreigners, are you allowed to use that word? I don't care, claiming benefits. This country seems to be in a dire, dire strait. As if that wasn't bad enough, the birthplace of William Shakespeare is being given a woke anti-colonialism makeover. I don't know what that means. Bosses who run the house believe some items in their archives contain language or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic even, or otherwise harmful. So now even Shakespeare is under the cosh. God, we need to turn this vessel round and do something about it. 0344 499 1000. Jodie is back. She is absolutely as happy as anything today. Her boyfriend Cameron not, because Liverpool got battered yesterday in the Carabao Cup. 0344 499 1000. Ryan is here. Ryan went to Ireland to a wedding and was mystified to find out that most of the Irish, St Paddy's Day today, weren't interested in the wedding. They were interested in the results from Cheltenham and wanted a television set. He'll take your WhatsApp voice notes, 0344 499 1000, and I will read your texts out if I can see without my glasses. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. 4:05. We're going to get this show moving. Monday afternoon, James Price, but 10 days from being betrothed. A very good afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm very well. As I said to you just off air, I had to go and get my waistcoat adjusted ever so slightly ahead of the big day, so that when I stand up to give the speech, there's no risk of an active shooter situation with the buttons flying everywhere.
I'm not going to say anything. You've brought this up, but you're putting on a couple of pounds. Your nerves. Your nerves are supposed to shed the pounds.
That's what it is. I'm eating my nerves about the in-laws coming. No. It's just excitement about everybody. I don't think so. No, I think it's fine.
Have you written a speech?
I've done version 1 of the speech. Obviously, the listeners of Talk Radio get a shout-out midway through.
Yes.
There won't be an ad break midway through the speech.
Can I just ask what time you're getting married?
That's a good question. 2 o'clock.
Oh, right.
I feel like 2. There'll be someone to get me there.
Is it during the week or is it at the weekend?
Saturday next week, not this one coming.
Because we could have done it live on Drive. Today, forget what's going on in the Middle East. JP delivers to the nation. Can we talk about this? Again, it's weird. If you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you sort of head off and you come back, and obviously this welfare cut sort of argument that seems that the right-wing press is saying, oh, Labour's on the ropes. Maybe I'm going to be really unpopular. I detest Starmer and I detest his government. But we absolutely need to cut the welfare state system benefits handout that is almost, I think, destroying us. Am I wrong?
No, you're completely right. I mean, first of all, it's an incredibly complicated system. It's by far and away the biggest line item that the government spends every year. In the Department for Work and Pensions, there's pensions involved in there as well. There are in-work benefits, there are out-of-work benefits, there are all kinds of extra things that people get based on all number of criteria. It's incredibly complicated. And it got to a point when the last Labour government, it made all the sense in the world for people not to go to work, for people to stay at home, because they'd get more money for having to do nothing.
Can I just tell you a story, which I didn't think I would ever tell you, but I'm going to actually be really honest. My brother, I wouldn't go to, but years and years and years and years and years and years ago, was on the dole, and he got offered a job, and I'll never forget it. I was 16, 17, and the job paid £8 a week less than sitting on his arse doing nothing. And I'm being completely straight. And I don't believe there can be a system in the world that anybody can think. I mean, all these 300 Labour MPs jumping up and down saying it's going to leave people on the poverty line. The whole idea of the benefit system is to absolutely help people who can't help themselves. But actually, if Starmer sees it through, and quite why it wasn't done before, I salute him, we shouldn't be making it a choice. It shouldn't be to just stay on that. You need to be, that should sustain you whilst you're looking, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, that was the point of what was called universal credit. One of the big actual successes, I think, of the Conservatives in government was to try and make sure that work would always pay, by which it means pay more than, as you say, sitting at home all day. And there are lots and lots of people who've got horrendous illnesses, and my uncle had multiple sclerosis. He couldn't move a damn thing, right? No one's suggesting that guy has to go and try and stack shelves or anything. He can't. He couldn't move anything at all, right? No one's suggesting that people like that, or the many other people who've got long-term chronic problems, or even short-term problems, whether they be really crippling mental health problems, and we can talk about that perhaps in a minute, or physical ones, obviously. But the idea that this huge amount, it's almost something like 300 billion quid a year, biggest thing
300 billion?
Something to that effect, right? When you include pensions in there as well. That are going to these sorts of people. The idea there is no fat to be trimmed there. The idea there's no efficiencies that could possibly be made. When we hear just then, lots and lots of foreigners coming here on benefits. What are they doing?
And the interesting thing is, of course,
for example,
and the lefties jump up and down, and they immediately go, "Well, you're just going to destroy all these mentally ill, poor, disabled people." We're not talking about disabled people. We're not talking about mentally ill. Definitely mentally ill people. We're talking about. I've said it before on this show, and I get looked at like I come from Mars. I'm that old, right? You either went to work or you went to college or university. I don't care what any bugger tells me now, you can choose to go on the dole. That was never the idea. I thought the invention of it was one of the greatest things of the modern era. Fantastic. Happy to pay my tax to help you when you can't help yourself. But I am not going to pay money for you to sit around knowing that that's an easy option. And I would say that as an ideology, coupled with that's why so many migrants come into this country, because we're as soft as anything, aren't we?
Yeah,
toughen up.
And it's exactly that vicious cycle you've just described. There are lots of people saying they won't go and do these jobs for the money that's being offered. Okay, so they get paid out of taxpayers' money, which is often borrowed now because we're borrowing huge amounts. Let's not forget the money that we spend every year on just servicing the debt, that's debt interests, not paying it down, is more than we spend every year on defence. And that number is getting bigger and bigger.
Just say that again slowly. Listen to this, peeps.
So the amount of money that we spend in the budget every single year that we spend on servicing our debt, not paying down the debt, the debt interest payments, we spend more on that than we do on defence in this country.
What is wrong?
And of course, whilst the defence budget may be going up by a tiny sliver relative to some other things,
to pay off the Chagos Islands,
the debt interest payments go up every year because the debt goes up every year. And at the moment, because we're being so generous, overly generous on welfare payments, that number goes up every year. And so there's less and less money coming in. So what does government do? Instead of getting growth going and encouraging capitalism, it taxes people more. So if you're a high earner, you're more likely to leave the country, leaving those people who are left to be taxed even more. And pretty soon, we're not far off being broke. And that's why the government's got to do something about all this.
Let's go straight, actually, to a call, because we try and keep this as real as possible on Drive. 0344 499 1000. This is really interesting. Karen's in Newcastle. Hey, Pet, you'll be happy after yesterday, right?
Definitely.
How's your head? Is it all right? How's your head this morning? Because I don't think there were many Geordies who went to work today, mate.
I don't actually. I celebrated at home because I'm actually housebound.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, I was over the moon for them because it's been 56 years since we actually got there.
It's true.
So I'm over the moon with that. But I've got to talk to you about this benefit saga.
Yeah.
Now, bear with me because it is a long process, but I would like to discuss this with you.
Keep it as simple as possible, because I'm getting old and I don't understand much.
Yeah, well, you're the same age as me, Jeremy.
Yeah, old.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm 61 this year. Right. Instead of targeting the vulnerable and the long-term illness and pensioners, how about them stopping the young ones that are actually fit enough to go to work? And just and they're just being lazy and they stay in bed until mid-afternoon. And the MPs need to drop their benefits. To be honest, they shouldn't have the extra of being an MP. They get a wage. They get extra homes. They get travel. They get bills. They get their restaurant bills paid for. They should be had a standard wage like a working class person does. And as far as the PIP is concerned, it just really annoys me.
Can I just say, take a breath, because what you just said, completely I agree. It's what James and I were saying just then. He was describing his uncle had multiple sclerosis. I'll nail my colours, Karen, and I know James would do the same, and any like-minded person. I'm very happy to pay for people like you who need help. Genuine, housebound. You can hear it in her voice, right? But as she says... Yeah. Why? But it's how it's dressed up. So Karen is concerned that the government are going to attack her and not the people, the youngsters who sit around and don't want to work. And I think, Karen, I see what Jay says, but I think that's the problem with this whole subject, because the minute you try and address this welfare cuts debate, everybody thinks these poor housebound disabled people, people with severe mental health, are going to be attacked. That's not what this should be about in any way, James Price, is it?
But it's also about the PIP, though. The PIP is supposed to be for people that obviously can't help themselves.
Yeah.
And also that money goes towards things like the equipment, the stuff that they need. Like myself, I need stuff on a day-to-day basis to help me along to have a normal life as possible, not dependent. I mean, this thing about the BMWs that people are getting on cars for the mobility. I mean, come on. My daughter has her own car, and I chose not to actually get a mobility car because she's got her own car, and you're
a proper worker, a proper person, aren't you? You understand, James? Have your say quickly, if you can, my friend.
Yeah, well, I think this is exactly it. For people who really do need this kind of help, who through no fault of their own have health problems of one sort or another, who get scared and frustrated that kind of support might be taken away because there are so many people who mess around with the system. So the good thing, if you can sort out this whole system, not only do you save a huge amount of money that can either be kept in workers' pockets or can be spent on defence or on education or on other things, but the people who genuinely do deserve it know that people aren't going after them.
And it's up to our politicians to explain to people like Karen that she will not in any... I mean, that's what is difficult about that? Karen, I have to go, and I'm really grateful you called, my darling, thank you. But my point is, any politician with a bloody brain cell will be able to understand that Karen is terrified and needs looking after. And let's bring it to this. Death of the work ethic. 1 in 4 young people consider quitting the workforce entirely to live on benefits, and most of them say they've got mental health. Now, I don't care if I get fired for saying this. These are lazy little... Sorry. And I can say that because, yes, I had a 3-month breakdown, and yes, I've been there and done all that and whatever, right? And I have the greatest of respect for anybody that speaks out about it. But I really fear, JP, that we're getting to a point now where people will go, what did you think of my piece of work? Well, it's not great. Oh, my God, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to have a month off. And if you don't give me a pay rise, I'm going to human resources. I do not meet anybody who doesn't think that's a con man.
Yeah, you're completely right. I think you said exactly right. I think the pendulum has swung now. It used to be the case that if somebody was really struggling, they'd get no sympathy, no support, no help at all, right? You talk about soldiers having what they used to call shell shock. People would think they were deserting and they'd go shoot them. Obviously terrible. The pendulum has swung very far away from that now, and you could say it's swung too far to the point where people, as you say young people, 1 in 4 are perhaps even shirking working at all, because if they say, I've got X, Y or Z, the law now says you have to just give them all the free money in the world. It's not good for society. It's also not good for those people. Ronald Reagan said this the best, I think, that the best social welfare programme in the world was the dignity of getting a job.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier about people saying, and this is... Ryan's going to go and put his crash helmet on now. You ready for this? Because I really believe this, right? You know, there's people who go, oh, you said it, I don't fancy that job. Tough. He said the wrong word. Mate, listen, the taxpayer is paying you because you can't get a job. So I want something back. I've been saying this for years. I want the jobs that apparently you don't like and we need to import immigrants for. Yeah. You are going to, I don't know, be a hospital porter, stack shelves, because it will get you out of your pit. It will put something on your CV. It will give you a reason for getting on with your life and will put you in the shop window. And you will be giving something back to us because I'm not going to pay you to do nothing. Now, everybody goes, oh, my God, that's so shocking. No, it's not shocking at all. You try explaining that to my parents. They would have gone, honestly, I've told the story before. Mum, I'm stressed, I said one day. I'm coming home early. Really? To tell you what stress is, going to work, doing your homework during an air raid shelter in the Second World War. They didn't understand, and why would they understand? Now, the leftists will go, yes, but in those days many people were depressed. Yes, and we're not talking about those. Right. We're talking about the shirkers and the people taking advantage of the United Kingdom because we're soft.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We know that we're soft on this because you've got so many millions of migrants coming into Europe now, and they either go to Germany or they go to Calais trying to come here. They're there in France.
A million foreign illegal migrants claiming benefits out of this country.
Right, and the reason we're doing that is because we say yes to it and other countries don't. Even French. The French are, a vaguely civilised country on a good day, and they're okay in the rugby this weekend. They don't do anything like as generous a set of benefits as all this. And I think the wage point you mentioned is really, really crucial here because we juice the economy with cheap, low-skilled immigration on the one side because we're not willing to raise salaries by even a couple of pounds. So let's think it's September 2021 going into that Christmas 2021. There was a big shortage of lorry drivers, haulage drivers. Remember this?
Remember.
What did the government do to fix it? Did they bring in huge numbers of... No, they just raised salaries by a little bit, raised wages by a bit, boom, solved the problem. People went, OK, I'll go and do that then.
I got told years ago that the way to do this show is, or anything like this, is to have both sides. Now, I'm going to ask you in a sec if you think that he's got the balls to do this time. Or a DWP spokesman said we have been clear that the current welfare system is broken and needs reform. So it is fairer on the taxpayer and helps long-term sick and disabled people who can work to find some employment, while it ensures it provides support for those who need it most. And I said at the beginning of the programme, I didn't believe that a Labour government would be saying that. I think the Tories should have cleared this horrible mess up a long time ago. Do I think he'll see it through? I've no idea, because, of course, all the do-gooders, all the Labour backbenchers are going, you're going to leave people on the poverty line. They need to work out a system that deals with the people who are taking advantage and looks after the Karens of this world, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that actually the Labour Party bear a lot of blame for this. In the years where the Conservatives were doing really good work in this space, we mentioned universal credit just now, Labour were doing all of these stories imaginable, demonising it, saying you're killing people, you want people to die, the most emotive, accusatory, very, I think, completely unfair and cruel language against the Conservatives, who are just trying to sort this system out so that it looked after those who most needed it and didn't subsidise those who didn't need it. Right? That's the problem.
Turn your phone off, Jez, when you're on it.
And I think that's kind of where we're at now. And so Labour are having that come home to roost. What would be really good, I'd love to see this from any government minister at some point, is to do what they do in Singapore. The Singaporean Prime Minister will stand up and go through basically a PowerPoint presentation for like several hours with loads of graphs and charts, a bit kind of Chris Whitty, next slide please, but just do it for hours and show how much money gets spent. And people will be astonished by how much money gets spent. Show the breakdown, show what you're proposing to do, show where the fraud comes in, and then just have that there on YouTube and then take loads and loads of questions, or you can come in and talk to you guys about it for hours and bore everybody senseless, except for those who are really concerned. They can allay their fears about it. That would be a great piece of comms. It wouldn't be very flashy, but by the end of it, you'd know exactly what the government's problem was and what it wants to do.
And that, for me, is what it's about. It's how they sell it. Two more light-hearted ones before we let you go. It's only 10 days to the wedding. I'm still waiting for the invite. Shakespeare's birthplace. I mean, this just about sums up this country. We've got a bulging welfare state system that costs us money we haven't got. We've got migrants coming into this country we can't afford. We've got public services on our arse, and a woke mob have now come for Shakespeare. The birthplace of Shakespeare is to be given a woke anti-colonialism makeover, whatever that means. Bosses who run the house believe archives in there contain language or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic or harmful, and they say they want to be more inclusive by reflecting on how the Baird's work played a part in colonialism. It follows a research paper which suggested that his promotion as a writer of genius benefits the ideology of white supremacy. William bloody Shakespeare. Where am I left?
It is astonishing. It almost renders me speechless, almost. I've got two quick thoughts on it. One, for a long time, the Member of Parliament for Stratford-on-Avon was my old boss, Nadim Zahawi. He was a Kurdish bloke born in Baghdad who this country took in and it let him build £1 billion business, let him become the vaccines guy and the education secretary and all these things because he kept getting returned to Parliament by the people of Shakespeare's hometown. Doesn't seem very racist to me. They let a Kurdish bloke go and do that. The other point is the whole point of Shakespeare is that he was the greatest, probably, writer of all time and that his work is infinitely replicable, right? You can show it in China and it works. You show it in Japan, it works. Show it in America, show it anywhere. And you show it to tribes people in rural parts that never had internet before and they'll understand the themes. So I go, oh my God, love and betrayal and the human condition. The point is that something like Shakespeare should unite all of us and say, oh, we all feel like this, we all struggle in this kind of way. It's not white this or supremacist that. It's complete and utter rot. And I think
where are we going to get to that almost everything associated with the United Kingdom is going to be stripped away so there will be nothing left but for, I don't know, anybody who hasn't been in. It just does my head in. William Shakespeare, you know, one of my kids said to me, Churchill was this, Churchill was that. You wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be. I don't care. He might have been a bit, you know, he's like Trump, probably got a few problems, but, you know, got it done, didn't he?
You think Churchill was bad? You should see the guy he beat.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's good. Finally, I'd love your opinion because you're a man of quality heading towards it. You see, anybody that gets married in a waistcoat. Prince Harry's US visa records to be released after court ruling. Now, this is a big thing, and I'm going to make a prediction because, as Ryan says, my predictions are getting clearer by the day. I said 3 years ago that he will be back in the United Kingdom, divorced from that odious woman with his ginger whatever between his legs, and honestly that's what I think. This is the government under Trump saying they're going to publish, and there's been a big argument, hasn't there, about his visa that was sort of, if you like, hidden by the Biden administration, because if you've got a drugs conviction or you admit you've been on drugs, you can't get into the United States of America. And he admitted in Spare that he had partaken of certain substances which will not be legal. And everybody thinks it's a bit of a cover-up. If this comes out, I reckon he'll get thrown out and she'll be delighted.
I think that's probably right. It's actually a friend of mine.
He'll use it as an excuse to finally leave that odious witch.
It's actually a friend of mine, Niall Gardner, at the Heritage Foundation, who's been leading all of this stuff and really pushing on it. And I saw him, but he'd been dealt a bit of a blow because President Trump was asked about this. And he said, no, I'm not going to deport him. He's got problems enough already with that wife of his. Well, which is about,
well done, Donald.
As insults go, about as bad as it gets. But look, his other problem, of course, is that he's been there for a few years, and on a spousal green card, you could actually get himself American citizenship, except, of course, for the fact that, you know, he maybe wants to come back one day and rejoin the British royal family. And so the guy is in a bind. I really do feel for him. I think he's whatever the opposite of lucked out is, I think he's had a very unhappy time of things.
You're marrying your woman for the right reasons. I'm not allowed on air to tell you why he got with her. The second word is whipped. 4:25, the amazing James Price. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you next week on the final week before he becomes a married man, and then it's all over. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. This is Talk Drive.
1 in 4 young people considering quitting the workforce. Those are the ones who are actually in the workforce, by the way. Got more than 1 million young people who are not in work, not in training, not doing anything. Well, what are they living on? They shouldn't be entitled to a single penny. You're young and able-bodied. Oh, well, I've got anxiety and depression. Well, so is everybody on it's a miserable Monday morning. Who isn't feeling a bit depressed and miserable on a miserable Monday morning and it's cold and, people haven't got, much money in their pockets? Get over yourself, get to work. I've just got no time for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk about there's a severe lack of St Patrick's Day fun in this studio. I was expecting green banners and pints of Guinness and everything. Everybody's just walking around looking miserable. Come on, Ryan, you've got fun. Jodie, come on, let's have a bit of fun, for God's sake. We're all just, honestly... Christ alive. 0344 419 1000. Text to 87222. Let's head to Derbyshire, lovely part of the country. Can you hear the enthusiasm in my voice as I drag you into Monday afternoon? Samantha, how are you?
Living the dream, and I've got my green pants on.
Right, interesting way to describe St Paddy's Day. You've got green pants on. Pants in America is trousers, or are you meaning undergarments?
Yeah, pulled over my head.
Okay.
So I've worked since I was 13 years old.
13?
13, paper
Yep.
round. That's my first job. That's how I was brought up.
Yeah.
Worked in the NHS for 39 years. I feel as if I'm a tombola on this. I had to give it up last year after being assaulted for the second time. Not entitled to any benefits at all. Retired, lived on my pension. Pensions ran out. Obviously, I get a pension every month. Applying for jobs. Nobody wants me. I can't get a job washing pots. I can't work in Morrison's. Nobody wants me. I've had to cut my CV back, so I think that's probably terrifying because of what I used to do. I've had to go to job seekers. They can't help me. Nobody wants me. I'm not somebody that stays at home. And I'm sitting here. I love your channel. I love all of you. I don't know what to do. I can't pay the mortgage. I'm paying the interest only now. All the bills are coming in, and the money that I have to eat is getting lower. And it's wrong. I've never been a stay-at-home person. I've always been pull your sleeves up, head down, bum in the air, get on with it. And it's not fair.
Let me ask you a question. I genuinely mean this. These are the sorts of calls that, for me, is what shows that this is about. To be able to be honest and for people to understand what you're going through. You put in nearly 40 years of graft, and a system that you quite rightfully expect to help you when you need help won't. When you look at how it seemingly bends over backwards to help people who don't, in my mind, deserve that, how does that make you feel?
So I've talked really quickly because I know that you don't have a lot of time for people to call in. So my background is I'm an intensive care nurse and an A&E rhesus trauma nurse. When I came out of intensive care and went back into A&E, I got assaulted the first time, and I can hold my own. Resting bitch face, all that nonsense. Go back into ITU, and I'm the most caring. I'm an old-fashioned nurse. When I got hurt the first time, I went to job seekers, and they gave me initial payout, which I have to pay back, which was £348. When I got assaulted last year for the second time, and I lost 2 front teeth, they gave me another initial payout, and I have to pay that back. I finished. Luckily, I put in for retirement, which I never thought I would do. I thought I'd nurse until I was crawling along, on my bottom, because I went into the NHS to nurse. How does it make you feel? I'm scared. I'm scared of what our country's turning into. You know, I live in a community that at the moment isn't touched, but it's getting there. I'm a proud person. I've asked for help. I went to social services. You know, my mental health took an impact. I'm a strong person. You know, I've not had COVID, considering the job I did. I bought my own respirator. I got through it. You know, it changed my life. I'm scared. I'm scared that I love. And I could break my heart. It's not fair.
It's not fair at all. And frustratingly, your line is starting to go. Listen, over 30 years of doing this, Samantha, right? You listening to me?
I can't even get a job to work in a team.
Right, listen, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to... I'm doing it differently to that. Sam, do me a favour. I'm going to say something, and I'm not one of those people that just says this for the sake of it, and I think I've proven that over the years. You are the very reason that I get as angsty as I do. You've given 40 years of service, saving people's lives. You get beaten up, you have to give up your job because of that trauma, real trauma, and you can't get anything from anybody. I don't make promises. I'd love to ask the people listening, come on, give me some advice here for this lady. There must be people that can think about a way forward. We will speak to you off air. That is a promise, Sam. That isn't just, oh, let's speak to her off air for 30 seconds. That is a given. We will do that in the next break. Sam, thank you very much indeed. Let's go next to, and I really like his opinion because he's a top man, Sir John Redwood, former Conservative Cabinet Minister. Sir John, you heard that call from absolutely nowhere. That, to me, sums up what is wrong with Great Britain. That somebody who's given nigh on 40 years of her life trying to save people's lives is left high and dry by a system that appears, and excuse my French, right, to wipe the backside of anybody who arrives in this country and doesn't deserve anything. It doesn't make sense, John, does it? Not at all.
No, it was a heart-rending story, and I'm very glad you're feeling as strongly as you are about it. I think my immediate reflections is that there are support mechanisms, combination of benefits and help to try and find work which Samantha should be eligible for, and I would like to think that was available for her. So I think the obvious thing for her to do is to contact her local Member of Parliament and motivate that Member of Parliament to pick her way through the system. The system's clearly let her down so far, and that's what an MP should be good at. They should be the person who can unlock the door. There is benefit money available for most people who can't work and who don't have sufficient income. And there is quite a lot of support and help to get people into work. And indeed, welfare reform must rest on helping people into work. There are programmes already, but I hope this government is going to launch more and better ones in its forthcoming welfare review.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, and Ryan's talking to Sam now, and that's a promise. We'll keep you updated. I started the show slightly weirdly for me. I hate this government, and I don't like anything really about Sir Keir Starmer, I'm being completely honest. However, I fully support the fact that he says that he's going to make these cuts because it makes no sense for people now to be garnering millions of pounds from a system that doesn't seem to help people like Samantha, but as I said, seems to help illegal migrants or people who are choosing not to work. He is facing, it says, a revolt from the Labour backbenches, all those do-gooders jumping up and down saying everybody's going to be poverty-ridden. For me, I think it's very simple. I said it already. I'm really happy to pay into a system that helps those who can't help themselves. But we need to be tough. Politicians need to sell this because people like Samantha, and an earlier caller, are terrified, genuine caller earlier who's disabled, terrified that she's going to be scorned. No, it's not about her. It's about people taking advantage. And it goes back, John, to something that I was saying the other day about migration. I don't know why we don't have the capacity, the mentality or the ability to employ people who can tell a dodgy immigrant, who can tell a dodgy claimant, we can't get a system in the United Kingdom that says, I know what you are, you ain't getting it. I know you are, I can do it on the radio. Why can't people do it face to face, man? What's the problem with this country?
Well, as we've seen, we've had a government that said it was going to make a major reduction. It didn't succeed, and they were fought off by lawyers and court cases. You need some combination to make that work of offshore processing. So you should say to people before they migrate to the United Kingdom, we need to check you out and check your papers to spare you a journey if you're not going to be a legal migrant. And we do need somewhere to send those who break the rules and come in as criminals. And that was the idea of the Rwanda scheme, which this government has decided not to pursue. But it's going to need something like that, because if the authorities don't have anywhere to send these people to when they've broken all the rules, and particularly if they are criminals in other matters as well as simply breaking the immigration rules, we should be able to expel them very quickly.
And it works both ways, because today...
The reform of welfare, and I think it's terribly important that the government doesn't slash benefits for those who are really disabled.
Absolutely.
And not getting a huge amount of money out of the system. So I think it's good the government's backed off on the idea of freezing the independence payments, because those are genuine needs of many people. But you're right, the issue is how many people qualify for these things. And why are 1 million young people now not in education, employment or training at all? And why do many of them pass a very simple test to say that they have mental ill health, which prevents them ever working, when quite often, if you're a bit depressed or you've got a bad mental condition, some kind of work is part of the answer to the problem. It isn't something that's going to make it worse.
But it comes back to, John, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because we can talk about the benefits argument, and then we talk about this survey today, or this piece of information. 1 in 4 young people consider quitting workforce entirely to live on benefits. Now, I don't know how you say to this generation, because we went to work at 16, right? That was it. You went to work or you went to college. I don't even understand it. There has to be a brain cell amongst politicians to go, there are people taking advantage. It's a bit like diversity. I absolutely am 1,000,000% behind all creeds, all colours or religions being given equal opportunity. But we've got to a point now where it's perfectly acceptable to say on this station, others might not like it. I've spoken to hundreds of people over the last few months who will say that if you're white and middle class, you're screwed. I've spoken to bosses of big businesses. We're going the same way with work. You go, oh, you've criticised my work. I've got anxiety. I'm going to have to give up. No, man, get a size 10 up your backside and improve your performance. We've just seemingly, John, gone as soft as anything. And I do think there needs to be a turning point. I'm all for sticking up for people who have genuine mental illness, but I will never stick up for people who are using it as an excuse.
Well, that's exactly right. And we've placed the doctors under quite a lot of pressure. GPs would find it easier to sign the permanent sick note than to stand up to an individual that they think doesn't have a very serious condition. I'm with you. I think there are some very serious mental health conditions, and they need proper treatment and proper recognition. But there are lots of other people who get miserable or unhappy, or something goes wrong in their lives, and they go to the doctor and think the doctor can sort it out. And the answer is not medicine or a mental health routine. It's them finding something better and more interesting to engage. And so
take it on the chin, dust yourself down, get up and start again.
And, you know, the Social Justice Commission has proven this. They've done an awful lot of research on what works well, and in many cases where people are unhappy or miserable, work is a very important part of the answer to that. People want self-respect. They want something to go and do. They need the community of going and working with other people and socialising. You can get very miserable sitting at home with nothing to do and no status in the community. We need to help people on their journeys so that they're proud of what they do, they communicate with other people at the place of work, and they can see that tomorrow could be better because they could work harder and make more money, or they could get promoted. If you don't have any of that in your life, it could be extremely miserable.
Mate, I completely agree. I just hope that our antiquated views of life somehow start to resonate more. They should do. We finished today, Sir John Redwood, former Cabinet Minister, a man who will be doing Panto this Christmas, by asking the million-dollar question. Do you, Knight of the Realm, believe that Shakespeare was a white supremacist who was homophobic, sexist, and basically the worst human being, even worse than Churchill, because the woke mob are now trying to whatever the word is. William Shakespeare apparently is the worst thing since sliced bread, my friend.
This is a disgrace. I mean, this country produced probably the greatest dramatist and writer the world has ever seen. The rest of the world celebrates Shakespeare. They know about Shakespeare. They have places of entertainment that perform Shakespeare. They think Shakespeare is relevant because he said something about the eternal human condition. He knew about love and hate and peace and family feud and all those things that are captured about the abuse of power in his history plays. And we should be incredibly proud. Why can't people just be proud of some of the great things great British people have done? We've had great entrepreneurs. We've had great statesmen. We've had great military people. And we've had this amazing dramatist. And I'm very proud of him.
And I'm bloody proud of those words. Sir John Redwood, you never cease to amaze me. Thank you so much indeed for being on. Sir John Redwood, former Tory MP and Cabinet Minister, 18 minutes to 5. We are live across the UK. Talk is on. So what do you make of a system that says, it's all right, listen, honestly, just sit at home. You're 17, 18, you're stressed, life's hard. Just don't work, it's all right. Well, screw all the people who are, you know, genuinely after money and deserve it. But you know, come on, it's hard, isn't it, being 18 in this world? It's terrible. Maybe you think that Shakespeare is a sexist, homophobic, misogynistic git. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 419 1000. This, my friends, is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We're live across the UK. The other news today is, well, it's a shock, isn't it? The number of failed asylum seekers waiting for an appeal against their rejected claims has soared by nearly 500% in the last 2 years and is blocking efforts to move migrants out of hotels. Tom Jones, it's not unusual to have him on, is it? That was crap. Senior fellow at the Centre for Migration Control and a Conservative councillor. TJ, you don't look like Tom Jones. You look like Mick bloody Hucknall. What's going on? I was expecting...
I'll take that. I've been called a lot worse.
Well, Mick Hucknall, I can't have him. I was expecting... Because I've met Tom Jones. He's astonishing. Great. I mean, what a name. What a start.
My parents really hated me when I was born.
Imagine being called Jeremy. That's crap. Centre for Migration Control. Do you know what, Tom? I have these conversations with seemingly almost everybody. And the one thing that I struggle with is this. It's 2025. We're supposed to be a major power in the world. I know we have problems. Are we utterly against or just incapable of going, right, I'm going to create a department or a building. I'm going to train some competent people because I can do it on the radio, but I'm going to do it face to face. I'm going to look at you. I'm going to know you're coming to my country to screw me out of money that I haven't got because I can't look after my own pensioners or veterans or anybody else. I'm not putting you in a hotel. I'm going to send you to the Falkland Islands just as an argument, just as an idea, just, you know, call me whatever. This country is, in my humble opinion, getting its priorities wronger and wronger, for want of a much better phrase, on a daily basis, my friend. Don't get it.
I know. It's absolutely crazy. I think one of the really interesting things about this this immigration backlog story, right, is that Labour's plan is to introduce a statutory duty for the courts to that all cases have to be decided within 24 weeks. It's currently about 46 weeks. and that's to incentivise courts to prioritise asylum cases when they're listing legal cases. So two-tier justice now means that you get priority access to the courts as well as lighter sentences when you're in there.
It's just... somebody said to me once that politicians, and you'd know more than me, don't want to deal with this. Is that through incompetence or because it's... I don't understand it. I mean, I know the more outrageous people will say, stop the boats. Others will say a Rwanda-type plan. Others will say to me, we need to be doing advertising and we need to be talking to these people and processing them before they come here. We had this with the passport office. Why can't we galvanise a workforce to sort? Is it that difficult? Because Trump seems to have managed. I mean, I'm seeing videos from the border in Mexico with women with their babies and their husbands crying, going, "It's no good. We can't get in." Good, because that's what he said was going to happen. Why is it incapable for us to do that here? Do you reckon?
Oh, I think part of the problem is actually that we have a massive surge over the last year of new channel arrivals. I think they're up about 30% this year. And the reason for that is quite simple, is that attitudes around immigration have tightened in most of mainland Europe. You know, Italy is now looking at doing a Rwanda-type deal over in Albania. Poland has closed most of its borders for security concerns. Germany potentially was going to tighten up a lot more, but it now looks like they're going the other way. But basically, we are now the weak link in Europe.
Who'd have thought that?
So the general crossings are just increasing, and the system can't catch up.
What would you do?
I would pour a lot more money into it. I would probably look to do more European immigration, but fundamentally, I think the one and only thing that you can do is stop the reasons for people coming here.
I do think we're soft as well, and I know maybe it's idealistic, maybe it's easy to say, but if you sit here every day like me and you hear about pensioners freezing to death, you hear about veterans on the streets, I'll say it until I'm blue in the face, until they drag me, or farmers having their land grabbed, and then you understand intrinsically that there are millions of people in this country who perhaps never voiced opinions about immigration because 10 years ago you'd have been deemed as racist. But the truth is, if you can't afford to look after your own and your public services are stretched to the point where they're not really providing the support they're supposed to, why on earth are you letting hundreds of thousands of other people in? And you know, however bad that sounds, Tom, I think that's a perfectly... And I think politicians, if they don't grasp that this is what the British public are thinking, I think they're really missing the point. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at our research today, it completely backs that up. 40 nationalities claim benefits at a higher rate per capita than the native population. That is
40? 40?
40 nationalities.
Wow.
Congolese, Iraqi and Afghan civilian nationals claim 4 times the rate of British people. More than 1 million foreigners are currently in this country claiming benefits. That is absolutely crazy. The migration system is a system by which we can just take whoever we want from the world, and we are choosing people who are not contributing to this country. It is a completely crazy system, and something has to change.
Mick, will you come on again? I wish I had more time. Mick Hucknall's definitely got... Honest to God, man, you're the best we've had for ages. Mick Hucknall, who used to be called Tom Jones. Good Lord. Thank you so much. Genuinely mean that. Senior fellow. A fellow, the Centre for Migration Control. We'll book him again, right? Honestly, do you see the blue tie and the yellow shirt, the Mick Hucknall hair? It's all going on. 0344 499 1000. It's 10 to 5.
this disastrous schools bill, which is trashing, vandalising 30 or 40 years of what were cross-party education reforms. I think England schools have gone up the international league tables. Meanwhile, schools in Labour-run Wales and in Scotland, where they've done the opposite, they've gone down the league table. They're being smashed up at the behest of the trade unions by Bridget Phillipson, and they are not listening to any of these teachers, all these people with decades of experience. More and more people, even in the papers this morning, saying it's time to stop the schools bill and to have a rethink, but she just doesn't seem to want to listen to any of it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To drive on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Thank you to Anna in Surrey, who says, your lovely nurse, Samantha, just made me cry. I think she echoes how all British people feel right now, scared of a government who is at war with us. Can I just say, in terms of Samantha, the one thing that I've always said and I've always tried to do, and we will do, we're doing it already. We're talking to her, we're supporting her, we're going to help her as best we can. That is a genuine fact. But to sit here and go, we're going to change her life, but we are going to support her as best we can and try and point her in the right direction. Because let's just repeat, you give 40 years of your life to work in the NHS to tend for sick people. You get beaten up twice by being punched in the face and attacked during your job. You give up and your pension's already gone. You can't get a benefit, you can't get help, and you feel washed up at 60. There's got to be somebody in the Derbyshire area that could look at a woman like that and go, do you know what? That is exactly the sort of person that we need. My mother-in-law's been on the text. She's amazed. She said 40%. No, Jan, this is what I just said. 40 nationalities, not British, claim more benefits per capita than British people do. 40 different nationalities, 5 to 5. To the phone lines, we'll go to Worcester. Lewis, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got, my friend?
Hi, Jeremy. Yeah, I just heard Samantha's call, and, you know, I completely understand where she's coming from and how she feels. During the last recession in 2009, I lost a job. I was shipped out to Germany to come back to lose my job again because they needed to move the money away from the UK. During that time, I nearly died several times from injuries and infections. I got very depressed. I couldn't claim anything. I was aware of European people coming in, having money sent backwards and forwards to their families at home while they work here by the government. You know, it took years of one of my friends, in the end, when I was in hospital, turning up and got my foot in the door in aerospace, but I had to travel 60 miles each way every day to achieve that. I've not looked back since, but I was not offered any help. I was on earnings and support allowance, the ESA, from years ago. I had an assessment at 5 ways because I was very depressed. And basically, the lady introduced herself as a nurse. We had the report come through. She wasn't actually a nurse. She was one of the doctors. So we challenged the fact that we were lied to in the appeal, and we basically got nowhere with the appeal.
I fear, and I'm, look, you know, who am I? I talk all the time about priorities. The way that I was brought up was to believe that the essence of hard work, the essence of trying to do the right thing, the essence of looking after your neighbour and your family, treat people, what did she say to me, the old girl, treat people the way you get treated yourself. I feel like all of that's being stripped away, and I feel like we seem to miss looking out for and after people who are genuinely important. I go back to what I said about this government. Let's screw the pensioners. Really? You give them 50 years, you idiots. Let's screw farmers. What? So you can pretend that net zero is going to work. You're actually screwing the food chain, you idiots. Let's screw veterans who, sorry to the younger generation who won't like this, who put their lives on the line so that you can have your freedom. It's an utter, utter disgrace, and our priorities continue to be wrong. And somebody like Samantha, who gives 40 years of her life to work in, you know, A&E, and actually save people's lives, gets beaten up, loses the front teeth, gets traumatised. She's now at home. She can't get any help. I don't understand it. I never will understand it. And as long as I'm sat here, we're going to rail against it because I think it's totally wrong. But your message is a message of hope. Your message is a message that says that there are people and you have to believe and you have to hope and you can turn the corner, right?
Yeah. Can I just say also one thing? During that time, I applied for over 100 jobs and I couldn't get a job. I couldn't even get a job grave digging.
It's hard, mate.
It was a real eye opener.
I'd love to say that I could help Samantha myself personally, but I don't know if we can, but we'll do all that we can, and that's a promise. And I really appreciate your call. Thank you, Lewis, so much indeed in Worcestershire. It's almost 5 o'clock, isn't it? Jesus, where's that hour gone? So it is St Patrick's Day. Interesting start to the show. Starmer facing a backbench revolution, really, a revolt even, against welfare cuts. It's the first time I could ever say this. I support him. There's too many people sat on the dole. No, not the people who are disabled, not the people with real mental health illnesses, but people who are taking advantage because we're too bleeding soft, because we hand out help left, right and centre. But then you hear from Samantha, and she's been a nurse for 40 years. She gets beaten up. She loses her job. She can't get anything. There's 1 million people from other countries claiming benefits in this country. In fact, we just told you exclusively 40 nationalities claim more benefits than British people. 40 in the United Kingdom. That's not racist to say, that's factual. What do you make of it all, my friends? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. This is Talk Drive, the home of free speech and common sense. It's St Patrick's Day, and it is, of course, a bank holiday Monday in Geordieland.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 2 for Drive. Monday afternoon, we're live across the UK. Isabel Oakeshott, I'm going to introduce her in a minute, but she's already nagging me again. You must be deaf. It's too loud. I am deaf.
It's way too loud, and I don't talk like that, by the way.
No, you don't talk about it, but it's years of being on the radio and television, and I can't hear anything. So what do you want me to do?
Well, don't you whack it up the volume? You'll blast your ears off even more. You'll be even more deaf.
All right.
Yeah, I think you've just got deaf from your own voice, you know, just shouting at yourself.
Oh, she's on form. We're going to have a right old... I nearly said tickle then. That didn't sound right, did it? Well, all right.
It might have improved my day.
Hey, there we go. Right, we're leaving the studio. We'll see you all tomorrow. Right, listen, Isabel, welcome. There is so much to talk about. I don't know if you've been listening.
There is. I'm making a list.
And there is a serious side. I mean, I don't know if you just heard that call from Samantha, you know. You were getting ready, but I mean, extraordinary lady, 40 years working in the NHS, beaten up twice, finally had to give up. I mean, traumatised and whatever. Has never had a payout, can't get anything, has run out of a pension, can't get a benefit, can't get a job, nobody will look at it, and feels really washed up and looks at what's going on in this country and thinks to herself, I don't mean to be rude. Yeah. She said, I absolutely support the welfare that we give to disabled people and genuine people who have mental illness. She said, but we've got a younger generation, 25% now, who'd rather not work and just go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm too anxious. I'm just going to sit on benefits forever. And 1 million foreigners claiming benefits. And that 1 million is made up of 40 different nationalities. More different nationalities collect benefits in this country than British people do. That's not racist to say, that's a fact. It's disgraceful.
It is completely insane what we're doing here, and I don't know if any other country does this.
No.
This is not normal, guys.
Can you imagine going to another country and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not working, I want you to pay for me to do nothing?
Could you just give me something called universal credit? Well, for a start, I think we need to change the name universal so that it becomes something a bit less universal. It's not a system that works anyway. We know, despite best efforts, the reason this was introduced in the first place under the Tories was to try to incentivise work. It actually does the opposite. It only incentivises work up to 16 hours, after which people just end up losing out on balance. So they end up not actually doing as much work as they could do. It is mad to have that kind of unconditional allocation of benefits to people that have only just rocked up. They are treated in the same way as any other British citizen as soon as they get refugee status.
I would respectfully suggest they get treated better from the stories I hear.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's not just from the stories you hear. That's not just anecdotal. That is borne out in statistics in relation to, for example, the allocation of social housing, prioritisation.
Yes, true.
And we know we were doing a story on this last week, weren't we, about the two-tier justice system for certain people, and we could go on and on about that. This is actually not that complicated. You simply introduce a rule which instigates that there is a certain number of years that you have to have lived in the UK and contributed before you're entitled to any of this stuff.
Absolutely, here.
I would put it at, honestly, I'd probably say 10 years. But if we wanted to be a little bit more moderate, we could say minimum of 5.
But why is it right now? Obviously, everybody knows your ties to reform, and I voted reform, and we've said all that, and reform have some ideas and all that sort of stuff. But this is what I fail to understand, and it's probably my age before you take the mickey out of me.
Not sure we're that far apart in that.
Well, we are, patently. What I don't get is somebody somewhere in government can not sit down and go, right, it's not uncaring to trim the fat off the people who are taking the proverbial out of a system that can't afford to help people who genuinely need our help. So I've always said, really, really happy to pay my taxes to help people like Samantha. In fact, I want Samantha to be helped. I want the first caller today who's disabled to be helped. I don't want some little scuzzbucket who's never worked, who's, I don't know, anxious or whatever, or somebody who's feigning illness or making it up because they're essentially, let me just say it, lazy. I don't think we should be wiping those people's backsides. And I said it for the last 20 years. We pay money for people to be unemployed now. And we encourage actively people to come to this country to do jobs, I don't know, hospital porters, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
fruit
but
picking.
These are not
I would
skilled.
make the people on the dole,
of course,
right, who are looking for work, I would make them do that in return for their money, and it would give them that would incentivise them to work.
Of course.
Why don't we do that?
Listen, I wouldn't be too proud to do that. You know, I got into a lot of controversy around a year ago for suggesting that people who are on unemployment benefits should help clean the streets. I don't see anything wrong with that.
You got into trouble for that?
Yeah, I would.
From who?
I tell you now, I would sooner and happily go out every day and clean the streets than I would take money for nothing.
And I'm telling you that we're the generation that I'm from, and you're exactly the same, right? I would do anything to feed my family, right? Anything. Yeah. I'm going to play you a clip. And for anybody who didn't hear this lady's call, this is the reality of what this country does or is doing to genuine people. This is Samantha.
Worked in the NHS for 39 years. I feel as if I'm a tombola on this. I had to give it up last year after being assaulted for the second time. Not entitled to any benefits at all. Retired. Lived on my pension. Pensions ran out. Obviously, I get a pension every month. I'm applying for jobs. Nobody wants me. I can't get a job washing pots. I can't work in Morrison's. I've had to go to job seekers. They can't help me. Nobody wants me.
Well, we want you.
Yeah, it's outrageous. Somebody's got to be listening to that.
I'm so sorry to hear this absolute rubbish. The thing is that people feel, so many people in our country are in a situation like that, and they feel that they are being deprioritised, ignored, and they've worked all their life and done decent, hard-working jobs. She's been a nurse, you know, it's God's work.
Save lives for 40 years, never made a lot of money, done the right thing.
And all too often it feels like the system, it asks the hardest questions of the people that it should just be nodding through, really, and asks the fewest questions of people that have just rocked up and happened to tick a certain box.
And when I hear those, and I never thought that I would say on this show, and I've said it all day, that I support Keir Starmer absolutely in West Streeting if they do this welfare cut. Whether they do it or not, I've no idea. Whether it gets watered down, it needs to be done. It should have been done years ago. There is no harm in all these people that jump up and down and say you are going to basically leave people on the poverty line. They need to explain this. The Samanthas need looking after, but there needs to be an admission in this country that there are people who do not deserve what they are getting.
Absolutely, and also just for people just to think about the scale of this thing. So a statistic that really jumped out at me today is that by 2029 to 30, so only in a few years' time, sickness benefit is projected to cost this country £100 billion a year. 100 billion. Do you know what that is in relation to the NHS budget? That is more than half. Well done. Of the budget of NHS England. That is completely insane, and it does no one any favours. And young people, whilst they might think that it's a bit of an easy, nice life, because you know what it's like when you're young, you think money's not that important, and you know, maybe it's okay just to take what the state can give you for a few years and have a bit of an easy life. It's not okay as you get older not having any money. It's not fun, it's not rewarding, and we're not doing these people any favours by not encouraging them, in brackets, forcing them, if they're well enough,
you're not getting anything,
to get on the job ladder, because it's going to be an awful lot.
I know this from personal experience. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm stressed. Oh, I've got anxiety. Really?
I'm stressed and I've got anxiety, but we've got to show
but you're
up.
Happy now,
I teach my kids, the one thing you've got to do to be successful in a job, you've got to at least show up and then build
People always say to me, oh, this is true. They always say, oh, it's all right for you because you do that, or it's all right for your kids. No, my kids, 16, every single one of them had to go to work. I remember Alice, right? I sent her to work in a cafe in Windsor, right, on £5.25 an hour. Yeah. And all of her friends in a nice school were like, what? Now they totally get it, because what the girl does, she goes away 3 or 4 times a year in the summer, but that's because she works and she pays for it. She's about to do a 3-month internship and she's excited. She'll work 12 hours a day and she'll travel 16 miles or something and she'll get paid for it. That is what we were taught.
And from an early age, she will have had an understanding of the value of money, and that's really important. You know, if you have to work really, really hard to be able to afford to make enough to pay for one coffee from Starbucks, you really start thinking about whether you need the coffee from Starbucks. But also that whole and I think this comes down to politicians not being able to explain it to people, because in my humble opinion, right, you have to work hard,
They need to understand that there's a lot of people who don't understand the cut, but they get terrified. They think it's going to cut benefits and that means all the... No, they need to explain it. It's in the presentation. It needs trimming, and it needs the people who are taking... I mean, look at this. 1 in 4 young people consider quitting the workforce entirely to live on benefits.
I mean, that's so sad.
Sorry, workhouses springs to mind.
But
what the hell are we talking about?
Isn't that so sad? What does that say to them about... What does that say about how inspired they are for their future?
I'd kick my children out my house, by the way.
What the hell has happened to Aspiration Britain? You know, where people actually... You know,
it doesn't incentivise benefits. It's non-aspirational. I completely agree.
We've basically just made it far, far too easy. And I'd rather be in an environment where everybody's hustling, you know, where people actually dream of having a sports car. They can see a goal, and whatever it is that they aspire to, it could be a home or whatever it may be, that they can see a route to getting there. It's such an admission of defeat, saying, oh, I think I'll just be on benefits, even though I'm well enough.
And it's also very, very, very insulting to the genuine people who are ill and who are in trouble and who can't get anything. Let's take a call. Always loved doing this with you. Let's go to Nicola in West Yorkshire. Nicola, Isabel and I are here. What you got?
Hi, Jeremy. I'll keep this brief. So I've been self-employed for 20 years. I was at work before the day I had my daughter. I had 6 weeks maternity leave because self-employed, I got no money. Anyway, fast forward 20 years. I've now got an amazing 19-year-old daughter who has an autoimmune disease. She has Crohn's and various other problems. She works 4 days a week. She goes to college. She pays for her own phone bill, she pays me a small board, and she pays for her car payments. So she works. And she could be in a position where she could stay at home, but she wants to work. And for her mental health, because of the disability she has got, she wants to work. She sent off for 70 applicants for jobs, and now she's in a job that she loves, feels valued, and works.
Completely agree. And can I go further to say, and this is going to go down like a lead balloon, get your crash helmet on, Ryan. Do you know how I blame the government for making it easy, but do you know who I blame a lot for this? Parents. Because it comes from your parents, whether you've got the work ethic or not. And Nicola's living proof that her kid was never going to go, oh, woe is me, was she, Nick? She was going to go and graft, because that's what you taught her, right?
She worked. She was applying for cleaning jobs. She would have done anything. She was even in a job that didn't understand her Crohn's, but she still stuck at it because she had commitments.
What do you say to the people? What do you think of? We get criticised for being so outspoken. What do you think about the system here that seems to look after people who don't want to work? What do you make of that?
It's just absolute. Well, I can't swear on, you know.
Yeah, we know what you're thinking. Because we're thinking it
I wish
too.
you would, because it'll upset Ryan. Go on.
I love this show, and I get so frustrated because I'm self-employed. I absolutely work my socks off to provide. I have 7 staff. I provide work for them. Brilliant. And all I do is work hard. I don't take time off. I even go to work if I don't feel well, because if I don't get paid. Yeah. And then, as I say, my daughter she'll have Crohn's for the rest of her life. She works. She goes to college. She gets up, she puts a brave face on, and she goes to work.
And she'll be happier. She'll be happier as a result.
Really, really admire you, Nick. Yeah. Thank you so much indeed. Nicola in West Yorkshire. And I think, I don't know about you, Isabel, but I think so many people feel like that. I really, really do. I think there's a growing sense of very well-placed sort of anger that if you play the game correctly, it seems, or do the right things, you're at the back of the queue.
I know far too often you hear about people who've got actual cancer or actual multiple sclerosis or other very debilitating conditions being forced to jump through, and they literally cannot jump through hoops. And you know, they are made to prove over and over again their condition, whereas something like mental health, you know, how do you prove it? You know, I've spoken to people on the inside of how all of this stuff is assessed. And
well, you know, I've got personal experience of that. I daren't say it on the radio, but you can just say that, yeah? I mean, honestly.
I mean, it's like the old bad back, isn't it? But you're so right about the parents, you know, and
Definitely.
As you say, with these young people, you know, it comes from the way you're brought up.
My Henry is 16 on Sunday week, right? I am telling you what his stepmum said to him this morning. When did you finish your GCSEs? He said June the 12th. She said you start work on July the 1st. You've got 18 days to hang out and play golf, and you start work. And he will.
I'm going to try
He'll get on his bike and he'll get a job, be it in a little shop. He'll get a job. right? And he'll get a job. And it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because
But
you have to have...
We all did
Yes.
that, didn't we? I was a chambermaid in the days when they were called chambermaids.
She's so posh. Most people would say, I worked as a cleaning lady. You know, she was a chambermaid. You're
Did
posh.
they even call them that?
In a
now?
hotel somewhere, were you?
I did, but I was also a waitress in a fast food joint. I mean, I've done all of this stuff. You have to do it.
I have a female friend who went to Five Guys one day and got depressed that it was a burger bar, but that's another story. 0344 499 1000. You can line more up for me and Nick. Can I just... this asylum argument's come back as well today, because the number of failed asylum seekers waiting for an appeal against their rejected claims has soared by nearly 500% in 2 years.
There's a surprise. Yeah, and there's also...
It's not getting any better, is it?
There's also been a 100-fold increase in migrants with so-called skilled worker visa. Have some questions about how skilled they actually are. After their skilled worker visa runs out, guess what they do? They claim asylum. Well, either you're an asylum seeker, a genuine one, or you're a skilled worker. In most cases, what these people are actually very skilled at playing the system. That's their special skill.
Why don't people like you and I, who won't be taken advantage of, why are we not involved? Why do they not employ people like us? Not us, but why is it not possible for successive governments to build a body of people in a department, in an office, that can tell that these people are taking the Michael and are using the system?
I mean, very good question. I think the best that we can do is try to elect such people. But at the moment, these people are not the types of people that are running the system.
It just doesn't make any sense. Here's something for you. I've been looking forward to the response of the amazing Isabel Akshat. The birthplace of William Shakespeare is to be given a woke anti-colonialism makeover. Bosses who run the house believe that some items in their archives contain certain languages or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic and harmful, and they say they want to be more inclusive by reflecting on how the bard's work played a part in colonialism. It follows a research paper, obviously, which suggested his promotion as a writer of genius benefits the ideology of white European supremacy. Sir John Redwood has, free of the ties of being a Tory MP, has turned into one of the greatest orators and commentators I know. And he says, isn't it extraordinarily disgusting that the rest of the world celebrates probably the greatest writer of all time, and this bloody country is now trying to label him as it tried with Churchill? What is wrong with this country?
When I read that, I'm just going to be honest, there's a bit of me that just thought, we're lost. This country it's over. I don't know.
I'm with you.
How do we come back from this? You know, the level of self-flagellation, it's so harmful to everything that we should be proud of. As you say, I mean, Shakespeare's one of our greatest kind of exports, one of our greatest treasures, all of these things, and what now we're apologising and saying, hey, trigger warning, you know, there might be some hurty words in here. I mean,
where does it end?
What the hell? I mean, are we going to do this with the Bible as well?
Well, we've done it with Churchill. He was a racist, allegedly. One of my kids said to me that Churchill was a racist. You know what I said to her? You wouldn't be here, love. You wouldn't. It wouldn't be the world that you imagine it is.
I don't know how we row back from all of this. It's become so ingrained.
Do you think that people... no, that's really interesting, that whole point about rowing back. I keep thinking every day it's turning. I haven't met anybody. I met two ladies who work at the Financial Times at the coffee shop today, and they were like, oh, Jess, everything. And she was going, what's gone wrong with the world? It's an absolute disgrace. Unless I live in a very strange world, I haven't met anybody from my working... From Newcastle to... Nobody. They all go, what's gone wrong? It has to turn, doesn't it?
It just has to turn. And I also wonder whether we're kind of, you know, the media, to some extent, we look for these stories because they are... you know, they are quite fun to talk about, and whether actually they remotely reflect the vast majority of what people think.
That's why you have to tune into Mike Graham's Morning Glory, because he has a Migrant of the Day feature, which is my favourite feature on any commercial radio station anywhere in the land. Well, yes, one migrant story a day. Back to the phone lines. We've got a Hertfordshire. Patricia, how are you?
I'm fine, Jed. Nice to speak to you.
Isabel's here as well. Right, couple of minutes. What you got? Go.
Well, Jed, I'm nearly 73, well, the end of the year. Retired 10 years ago. Well, I retired 3 months before I reached 63 and went to the job seekers, just to maybe sign on for 3 months because I've worked for nearly 50 years.
Yep.
And then after 3 months, I'll be getting my pension. And I just said to them, why are you sending me for training? I have 3 months. And they said, well, you can't get any job seekers money if you're not going to go for training. So can you tell me how these people get money?
So this is an example of what we were talking about, isn't it?
Rubbish, isn't it, honestly?
She worked for 50 years.
She's got 12 weeks till she gets her pension. They want to send her on a training course for a year.
I mean,
they're nutters, man.
You know, and yet we have people that just rock up in our country, make no contribution whatsoever, and within a few weeks of their arrival, they're being paid for by people like her. And the rest of us, frankly.
What do you think of the system, Patricia? Seriously, because I find
honestly, I'm a mixed race person, half Irish, half Belizean. My dad came over during the Second World War to help out as a British colony, and he stayed and he worked all his life.
Yeah, listen.
All his life, us children did. There was 8 of us. My children, I've got 3. They've always worked from a young age.
I mean, it's not complicated, this, is it? A country can't prosper unless the vast majority of people are contributing more than they're taking. It's obvious.
And Patricia's example of her dad, I always tell the story, I get picked up sometimes from the station by a taxi driver. He's a Bangladeshi guy, he's been here 40 years. His dad brought in the 3 sons, and he remembers every single day, his dad would say, we are so lucky to be here, we work, we give back, we respect Great Britain, and he's probably prouder to be British than I am, and exactly like Patricia's saying. And you must look now, Patricia, at a system that allows people to come to this country and seemingly take advantage, and even you would be outspoken about that, right?
Oh, I'm very outspoken, Jez, but it makes no difference most of the time. Honest to God.
Well, we've got to keep trying. I mean, you know, if we all give up, and I know how you feel, by the way, you know, I get very disheartened sometimes just thinking we're beyond saving. But if we all think that, then we will be beyond saving. So we've got to keep fighting. Really
appreciate your call, Patricia. Oh, by the way, before you go, Patricia, is Shakespeare a racist? Do you want to hear my Shakespeare joke, you two? I did it earlier.
Go on, then.
William Shakespeare, 1623, lead in his pencil. 1624, lead in his coffin.
Thanks
well, you know, just quickly, racism, I never went without a job. Being a black person, I always got a job, so that's another thing for another day.
Love you, Pat. Great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed. It's too short. Why don't we just co-host? Why don't you come and sit with me every day and make me happy?
Oh, well, you know, I don't get offers like that very often.
Well, you should do. That's what I'm saying. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you. I'm just about to say worm. Your work is so valuable to us. Somebody's written worm down on the screen. I know. Thank you very much indeed. Isabel Oakeshott, 5:25. We're live across the UK on the home of free speech and common sense. What do you want to talk about, my friends? 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. I'm off for a wee. I'll see you in 3.
disastrous schools bill, which is trashing, vandalising 30 or 40 years of what were cross-party education reforms. I mean, England schools have gone up the international league tables. Meanwhile, schools in Labour-run Wales and in Scotland, where they've done the opposite, they've gone down the league table. They're being smashed up at the behest of the trade unions by Bridget Phillipson, and they are not listening to any of these teachers, all these people with decades of experience. More and more people, even in the papers this morning, saying it's time to stop the schools bill and to have a rethink, but she just doesn't seem to want to listen to any of it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About my remit today was to try and make people smile and laugh, because it's all a bit dour and flat. It was a bit flat today. We don't need to be flat. It's St Patrick's Day. It's a Geordie Bank Holiday Monday, winning their first trophy at football yesterday, the Carabao Cup, after 73 years. This is what I just said to Jodie, right? This is what I deal with. If you could hear off air, it would be infinitely better than on air. I just said to Jodie, I've got some news to you. I am going to have a television show coming out very, very soon, and I gave her the dates, not public knowledge yet, and she went, "Oh, that's a shame, that's the day my dog died." Brilliant. Well, that's just completely and utterly burst my balloon, hasn't it? Anyway, news on when that programme's coming out very soon. But yeah, it is, yeah. Brad, Jez, haven't these idiots in Stratford looked at what happened to the National Trust? They will go the same way and support will melt away. Brad in Cambridge, completely agree. Right, stand by your beds, Rye. Watford, your team is Luton, right? Sunderland and Newcastle, you've got to understand, this is like cultural. Craig Brown, Jez, I know some from Sunderland won't agree with me, but well done, Newcastle. You did the North East proud. Keep the rivalry for the derby matches. The more attention we get for the North East man, the better it is. Well done, lad. Thank you, Craig. Brilliant day yesterday. Simon, Jez, please tell your guests that the state pension is not a benefit. We pay for it. Couldn't agree more. Mark's in Manchester. These people don't have time to find a job. They're too busy with their side hustle, even for cash. Margaret, why am I doing that now? She's in Birmingham, mate. Left school at 15. Week after started work, never claimed the dole money. The 1964 heart operation, never even claimed sickness benefit. It's all about priorities. Barbara's in London. Good afternoon, Barbara. Interesting that the lefties are jumping up and down about immigrants not getting their unearned benefits, but not a peep when the fuel allowance was stripped from the people in their 80s and 90s. Jez, the worst thing about these Gen Z idiots who don't want to go to work is that you and I have already subsidised them to go through university, mostly on useless courses. Wow, it's all going out. Zoe, good afternoon. She's in Lancashire. Afternoon, Jez, sorry. But the more disabled people these idiots force off PIP, the more unemployment will rise, because nobody is taking on because of this national insurance hike. Why aren't Labour seeing it? Interesting. Malcolm, Shakespeare, is nothing bloody sacred, a gift to the world, and we have to apologise. Are you sick and tired? Aren't you sick and tired of apologising for Britain's existence? Hasn't Britain achieved anything of value? Apparently not. Andy's in York. That's where one of my daughters is at university. I'm nearly 27 years of age. I currently receive PIP for both daily living and mobility. I have never had a job, but I would love to more than anything. I'd applied to study at college last September. Due to me having no qualifications, I left school when I was 15 due to a group of girls going to attack me. When I told the college that I'd suffered from mental health issues, they said I could not attend as they needed to keep everyone safe from me. Last year I was diagnosed with complex PTSD due to all the trauma I've been through. I've been offered no therapy or treatment for this, and I have nightmares most nights. So not all young people claiming benefits are living a lovely life. People like me would love to go out to work and have a normal life. Amy, do you know that the reason? Thank you. Right, that's the whole point. And we get so the problem with this debate, Amy, is the minute you hear a government, whatever their political persuasion, wants to cut certain benefits, people jump up and down and say that's going to screw the genuine people. It should absolutely not screw the genuine people like you. It should help the people like you. In fact, we should change the way our mind works, that the people who are taking advantage are making it less likely that your money will continue. That is what needs stripping away, and we have to be able to have that conversation without fear or favour. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Next up, Henry Smith, former Conservative MP. Henry, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon. Not too bad, thanks.
I'm raging. I never thought I'd say this on Drive Time. I support Keir Starmer. I hope he does cut these benefits. I hope that all of those wet left MPs on the back benches are put in their places. It's a disgrace, is it not, Henry, that 1 million foreigners are claiming benefits? It's a disgrace that 25% of our younger generation would actually prefer to not work nowadays, just say I want to be on benefits, when I and people around me, or seemingly everybody know, was made to go to work and give something back and have aspiration when I was a kid, pal.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and you were correct in what you said in response to your last caller, that our welfare system should be there to help those who are genuinely in need and need support to get into work, or if they can't work, to be able to lead their lives. But it shouldn't be there to be paid out to people who are either, taking cash jobs on the side, or appallingly, somewhere in terms of 1 million illegal migrants who are claiming benefits. That is where we should be focusing reform of the benefits system, help those who most need it, and clear out those who are, quite frankly, abusing it and abusing taxpayers.
1 million foreigners claiming benefits. I can strip that down, and even I nearly fell off my chair. And it's not a very big chair. 40 different nationalities within that 1 million figure, Henry Smith. 40 nationalities in total, each of them claiming more benefit than British people. That is disgusting. That's just wrong. So I can't imagine any country in the world, as Isabel Oakeshott said, where we would go. I hate the language, but I can't imagine a country I just land in and go, sorry, could I have some money, please, and some dentistry and some. And I wouldn't mind, hand on heart, I wouldn't mind if these people were escaping a war-torn country, not a tent on a French beach. But what I really get wound up about is that it's OK to cut our pensioners' fuel allowance, and it's OK to leave veterans on the streets. It's right to grab our farmers' land, the food chain, you idiot, Starmer. But we're going to look after everybody else. Doesn't make sense. And that whole adage about charity begins at home, I know people don't like it, but it's true, because we're skinned, Henry.
Well, again, Jeremy, I think you are absolutely right. Benefits being paid to over 1 million foreign-born people is just the tip of the iceberg, actually, because if you look at the figures for social housing, for council houses and housing association properties, the proportion of those going to foreign nationals and Brits not being able to get housing is another scandal that is out there. And you're quite right. I can't think of another country in the world who would put up with this. And little wonder why Britain is such a draw from people seeking to cross the English Channel from France, a safe country, of course, and want to settle here because they see a benefit system which will pay them and house them. They see a healthcare system that they will be able to use without making a contribution. And also, of course, there's the English language, although we're not now supposed to be proud of the English language because, as you said earlier on, we're supposed to be ashamed of our culture and Shakespeare and everything else that goes along with it.
This is what I don't get. I mean, I was in Edinburgh last weekend. My daughter is at university there. I love the pride of the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish. We can't be proud of the St George's flag. I have this discussion with my father-in-law every day. If he puts St George's flag up, he's patriotic. The local council will tell him that that's wrong and he's depicting racism and he's got to take it down. We seem to get it all wrong. I'm really happy to help people who can't help themselves, starting at home. But one of the things for me about the migration problem, and today we got a 500% increase in appeals of asylum seekers, that the reason that it infuriates me so much is just that I think, I heard about Rwanda, I didn't agree with it. smashing the gangs, whatever. For me, it's really simple. Stop making Britain such a soft bleeding touch. Stop making Britain such an attractive option. And it would be all right if we weren't billions in debt. And in the same time, we weren't really saying to so many people, and I hate using the phrase, but who have paid their stamp and done their duty and never broken law, you can't have anything and you're at the back of the queue because we're going to make sure that everybody else is at the front of the queue. And I just don't think that morally that lasts, Henry. And I have to ask you a question. Do you think that your party did enough in government to weed these people out? Because I don't.
No, I don't think the last Conservative government did enough. One of the reasons why I decided not to seek re-election to Parliament was because I became increasingly frustrated in that we weren't addressing the issues that really matter to people, such as bearing down on illegal immigration, such as rising taxation. These were not the things that I came into Parliament to do. And we do need to address those things. But it's got worse since Labour came into office last July. As you said, there's been a 500% increase in the backlog of asylum appeals. And that's partly due to the fact that one of the good things that the last government did was they introduced the Illegal Migration Act. That meant that you couldn't claim asylum if you had entered this country illegally. Labour promptly repealed that part of the Act. So little wonder why we've got a huge increase now in asylum appeals. And the answer is I personally would leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which is a big factor, which means people are rarely deported from this country because they can claim all sorts of spurious reasons. There was one a few weeks ago because some migrant's son preferred British chicken nuggets to Albanian chicken nuggets.
Mate, honestly, I did it all. It almost, I get to a point, Henry, where I think, do the powers that be realise that we're becoming a laughing stock? Do you, like, if you're flush, you can help people. We're not flush. We can't. Our public services are creaking. We have a system, in my mind, that is still hell-bent on apparently appearing to be the best in the world whilst we're not able to pay our own food bill. And I'm all for generosity, but I think there comes a point where you have to look at your own. And what I think about most politicians, actually of all parties right now, I think they really, really need to understand the depth and the gravity of what people think about this. This isn't just words. People have had enough of feeling, as I said, at the back of the queue. And you know, maybe that's one of the reasons that reform, despite its problems in the last couple of weeks, has started to resonate with people, because those sort of traditional Tory values that I was brought up on seem to have disappeared under sort of, you know, even Johnson went down the sort of the green net zero rubbish, didn't he? People want to be able to see a doctor, pay their bills, be safe, bring their kids up. That's what they want. That's all they want.
Well, people are paying more and more in taxes and getting less and less in terms of services. And that is something that is just not sustainable. And people are very angry across the country at that situation, and rightly so. And it cannot be right that we are putting British people at the back of the queue consistently when it comes to what this government's priorities are for the country. And there's another example, a piece of British sovereign territory in the Indian Ocean, very strategically important, the Chagos Islands. We are giving those away to Mauritius because some international court, which is a non-binding judgment, said that we
not just that. Oh, Henry Smith, get with the plan.
And £18 billion.
Yeah, £18 billion, but it's only going to save £1.5 billion if we freeze our pensioners to death. Henry, it's great to have you on, my friend. Love to have done longer, but thank you so much indeed. You're welcome back any time. Henry Smith, former Tory MP. What is it, 19 minutes to 6 o'clock. Loads of people wanting to get on. 0344 499 1000. Some of your calls after this.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
16 minutes to 6. Jez, I started work from 12 doing paper rounds before school, then at 14 worked on Bolton Market on a Saturday. You never hear of young people doing Saturday jobs. I don't know why it is. Because of insurance, they're not allowed. But the best thing is to get out there and work. Andy in Morecambe. I'm a 6-year-old trucker and I've never been out of work in my life. That's it. It's exactly right, Anne. Pat's in Colston. Jez, when I left school at 16 back in the day, seeking employment, I would get anxious and depressed because I did not have a job. Fast forward to today and it seems the young are the complete opposite. They get anxiety and depression because they actually have to go out and earn a bloody living. Love that you love. Absolutely. David, when will this country wake up? How are 1 million non-British people allowed to claim? Cooper is silent on this stuff because we have politicians who aren't affected and therefore do not give a toss. It's beginning to feel that we don't have 4 years to fix things and that we Britain should strongly consider taking our country back. Jez says, Sue, I listen to Talk most of the day as I have the dream job at 63 of running my own B&B. As much as I enjoy the chat and the banter on Talk, I am now becoming increasingly exasperated by reports of the state of the nation. As journalist, do you not have clout or ability to lobby the powers that be? Because I and Joe Public are beginning to feel helpless. We literally don't have a voice. Please, can we think of a way to cut out this crap? Yes, Sue, I'm with you. God, we're doing our best. 5:45 to the phone lines in Leicester. Is it? Well, I can't even see. Look at me looking. If you're looking, I can't see. All right, thanks. Lincolnshire, Rob, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got?
Hello, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm on PIP for the last few years due to having secondary progressive MS. Mm-hmm. But I got diagnosed with MS 20 years ago, and I still worked until literally about 10 years ago, when it went downhill. And the last 5 years, yes, I've been on PIP. But in those last 5 years, I've also had leukemia. I've now got COPD, and I've now got terminal cancer. What I'm frightened about is this government, yes, we need to sort out the welfare bill because there are people taking the mickey out of it. What frightens me is politicians doing it and ending up people like myself being kicked off and the scroungers still being left on it.
This is, mate, first up, do you know what? There are days when I think to myself, oh, and then when I have a call like yours, first of all, what can I say to you? Bless you. Cotton socks, what you're going through. No, but the point I'm making is, and I made it earlier, it is down to politicians to explain this crap to people. I totally understand the fear that when you hear the welfare benefit system is going to be cut, that genuine people, do I need to list what you just said? No, I don't. People heard it, and it's extraordinarily difficult for you, and you do. The humility to even ring is fantastic, right? Yeah. People like you need to be looked after, but they need to explain that there are people who are taking advantage and target them.
Yeah, and the other thing, I'm actually only 54 this year, if I get there.
Listen, mate, we send you our best wishes and our love. We hope everything works out as it can do, but I totally appreciate what you're saying, and I do think it's down to politicians to make sure that people like you know that your absolutely deserved and quite rightly received benefits continue. Thank you so much, Rob in Leicester. Let's go to London. Saeed, couple of minutes. What you got, my friend?
Yeah, look, I was listening to you talk about Churchill and whether people consider him a racist or not. And I think as a student of history, I feel that we should be willing to look at all historical figures objectively, all the sort of pros and cons attached to them. We don't want the Russians to admire Stalin because he won them the Second World War. Similarly, if a historian can prove that Churchill was a racist, then we should accept that. But still, that does not take away his many contributions to the UK, to our Second World War, etc. But we have to stop making complete heroes out of you and I, who are imperfect human beings.
You know, Saeed, I'm so important. Favourite call of the day. Do you know what I always want to say? I'm sure. Well, I know this. I did the Jeremy Kyle show for 15 years. There are, in every single person, there are imperfections, and in every single person is a story. However, what I object to is that anybody who has done anything by this country, William Shakespeare, Winston, that suddenly we look back and everything's wrong. We can't tarnish, we can't lambast, we can't cancel and destroy everything in our history. I don't think it's right, my friend. I really don't. People make mistakes, have imperfections, but we have to think about the bigger picture. Don't think me rude, side. I've got to move on. 12 minutes to 6 o'clock. We are coming back with sport. I wanted it to be Sam Ellard because I made a prediction. Can you try and get Sam Ellard on the phone? Because apparently he's done a runner today. Back in 3.
Disastrous schools bill, which is trashing, vandalising 30 or 40 years of what were cross-party education reforms. I mean, England schools have gone up the international league tables. Meanwhile, schools in Labour-run Wales and in Scotland, where they've done the opposite, they've gone down the league table. They're being smashed up at the behest of the trade unions by Bridget Phillipson, and they are not listening to any of these teachers, all these people with decades of experience. More and more people, even in the papers this morning, saying it's time to stop the schools bill and to have a rethink, but she just doesn't seem to want to listen to any of it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. It's time for sport. Push the button, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
If you listen to this programme regularly, you'll know that Sam Ellard is here. I said to Sam Ellard on Tuesday night last week, before I left the show, as a Liverpool fan, you're in for a terrible, terrible week. I said, and I quote, and I've got the clip, you will be knocked out of the Champions League by PSG, and you'll be crying when you come on air on Monday, because the mighty Toon, my second team, and where my best friends in the world live, are going to end 73 years of hurt and win the Carabao Cup. And it came to pass. And where's Sam Ellard? Done a bleeding runner. We've got better than him. He's history, man. He's like Liverpool. He's past it. Charlie Wyatt, football editor from The Sun. How are you, Charlie?
Good. How are you?
What a prediction that was. I said it.
Hang on.
Knocked out of the FA Cup by Plymouth, out of the Champions League by PSG, and I have to say, because, listen, all of my friends, they're all mad Toon Army fans. What an amazing... Forget yesterday as a spectacle. Newcastle battered Liverpool yesterday. Liverpool didn't turn up at all, did they?
No, I mean, I was there. Atmosphere was brilliant. Newcastle fans obviously made it. I mean, you know, Liverpool supporters have got used to going there every year or so, haven't they? But Newcastle, yeah, they really made it. They deserved to win. They should have been out of sight. They should have been 3-0 up before Liverpool got that late goal. So, yeah, so pleased for every Newcastle fan. So pleased for Newcastle manager Eddie Howe. And what I also like, that's not really been written too much, is that squad yesterday had 12 Englishmen in it.
Yeah.
6 English players started and 6 were on the bench. And we don't get that anymore, Jeremy. So that in itself was like really, really good news.
And I think if you think about Eddie Howe as a manager, and I've got a really interesting stat, I won't lie that I was giving it in a minute, but just very quickly, I would talk about, because I've been to St James's Park more times than I've been to the London Stadium, I would talk about how he improves players. I think one of the best midfielders in this country, box to box, is Joe Linton. He was laughed at when Steve Bruce bought him for 40 million. He couldn't have hit a barn door with his... dreadful. It was Eddie Howe who put him in midfield. Unbelievable. The whole team yesterday I thought was an extraordinary performance. Here's a stat for you, given to me by Ryan, who doesn't get out much because he's a Watford fan. The last England manager before Eddie Howe to win a trophy was Harry Redknapp. Do you know who Harry Redknapp's first signing was as Portsmouth manager?
Eddie Howe.
See, Ryan, I thought you were going to make me look good, and I look crap now because Charlie White's well ahead of us. Please for Eddie Howe. I think he'll be the next England manager. I really do.
Yeah, well, I think, to be honest, the FA looked at him a year ago, back in March, when they knew Gareth Southgate was going to leave, but Eddie would have taken $7 million to get out of Newcastle. I think he would have been up for it because things behind the scenes in Newcastle, particularly last summer, were not particularly good. They've got a lot better now. And it wouldn't surprise me if he signs a new contract at some stage. But yeah, you're right. He'll be the next England manager at some stage, without a doubt. Brilliant achievement. It's great to have a different team win a trophy, isn't it? Because we can't be having, even in the League Cup, it's either been Chelsea, Man City or Liverpool. Really important. Hopefully the FA Cup this year will have a different winner other than Manchester City as well. Be great to have another team. And yeah, that's what the Cup's all about. Brilliant atmosphere. Fans enjoying it. There was no trouble.
Literally a bank holiday. I've spoken to Gray today. The bank holiday in Newcastle today, mate. And you know this. People have to understand. It is a goddamn religion. The whole city when they lose is depressed. The euphoria that will create. The other thing is, very quickly, Thomas Tuchel, first England training session today. The squad, interesting, called up Henderson, called up Rashford, recalled out Dan Burn, that towering header, 32. Making the point that he's got an 18-month contract. The remit from the FA is to win the World Cup. He's not interested in bringing players through. He's interested in getting results. Thought on that, Charlie?
I'd rather have an English manager. Speak to German people. They could never see an English manager manage the German team. Arsene Wenger always used to say that the England manager should be English. But we've got Thomas Tuchel. He's short-sighted, 18-month contract. Let's hope he can do it. The England squad's not quite as good as what I think some people think at the moment. But yeah, it's a sellout at Wembley on Friday. They've got Albania, they've got Latvia 3 days later. And I tell you what, if we'd said to Dan Burn, 32-year-old Dan Burn, who used to watch Newcastle at the Gallowgate, we'd told him at the start of the season, by the way, there's going to be a few days in March where you're going to win the Carabao Cup at Wembley, but you're not going to be able to have a beer because you've got to report for England training the next morning at St George's Park. He would have laughed.
He's from Blythe, lad. He's from Blythe, and he got turned. It's an extraordinary story. He is proper Northeast man, and extraordinary. Do you understand Tuchel's approach? Do you understand the short-sightedness, or would you prefer?
No, totally. We're very quick in this country to retire players. I had mates after the Euro saying, Harry Kane needs to retire from English football. It was absolute nonsense. He's got 30-odd goals again for Bayern Munich. He scored 10 goals in the Champions League. We don't have a striker anywhere near as good as him, even though he didn't play that well at the Euros. Jordan Henderson, his experience. Other countries would bring Henderson back. I know some people are getting very angry about it. We're not very good in central midfield other than Declan Rice. It's not an ideal squad, but it's one, of course, that was going to qualify for the World Cup next year because it's it's a pretty boring group, isn't it? Albania, Latvia, Serbia, and Andorra again. England have got to go there in January. Andorra, population 30,000 people. I think it's insane that it's
worse than going to Watford. I'm going to give you a great story to finish, Charlie Wyatt. Have you heard this about this club apologising? This is brilliant, ladies and gentlemen. A Bulgarian top-flight team has apologised for holding a minute's silence for a former player only to discover that he's still alive. Arda Kajali mourned Petko Ganchev before Sunday's league game with Letska Sofia, with both teams lining up on the centre circle and bowing their heads in his honour. However, before the game ended, Arda, the team, posted on their Facebook page that they've made a terrible mistake, and they said, "We want to wish Petko Ganchev many more years of good health and enjoy the success of watching our football club." That's a bit depressing when they're lining up saying you're dead and you're still alive, Charlie.
Yeah, he won't forget that game, will he?
Not at all. Can I just say that you're far more intelligent, switched on, and far more fun than Sam Ellard, who's never coming back. But that's what television...
I don't believe that.
That's the truth. Charlie Wyatt, football editor from The Sun, thank you very much indeed. Reacting to Thomas Tuchel's first squad, and also Newcastle Commander Toon Carabao Cup winners 2025. My mates have still not surfaced. It's a bank holiday Monday in Newcastle. It's also St Paddy's Day. We've an hour to go on Talk Drive. Whatever you want to talk about, this is your station, the home of free speech and common sense. 0344. Why am I doing that with my hands? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. You can start your message with the word talk. We're heading to the news at 6, and we'll be back with more of your calls after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 3 of Drive for Monday. I don't know what you're doing, heading home. Maybe you're at home, you're running around, the kids are throwing toast at your chops. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. The home of free speech and common sense. An hour to go of drive time. Tom Hunt on the way. Loads of you texting, by the way, and I'm always so appreciative, and we must try and read some. Margaret, done it again. JK, William Shakespeare, the woke brigade again, rid of our history. Leave it alone. After taking the pictures down of Churchill, Nelson and Margaret Thatcher. Why are they doing this? I've no idea, because they're apologists, because they're not proud of the United Kingdom. That's what I would say, Margaret. Hello to Gurdeep. My daughter goes to college, but she is also desperate to work. She doesn't want to start claiming benefits. Good. And I would very much suggest, Gurdeep, that comes from parental advice. Rob I think is it Higham or Hyam? I don't know. Rob here. I have a barber shop which my wife runs. My son, who is 11, helps out on Saturdays. He gets himself up, gets dressed, and when he's there, he talks to the customers, cleans up and makes the tea. He has a great attitude, and I'm well proud of him. It just goes to show how bone-eyed a lot of people are. He has been doing it for a year now. We don't make him do it, and if he wants to have a day off, he lets us know. I'm now letting him practice cutting my hair with guidance. And I'm just the test subject. She's a hairdresser at 11. But it's true, if your parents are grafting, you're not going to sit at home, are you? Mark T, do you think that's Mark Thatcher? Might be Mark Thatcher. Oh, no, he's lost in there. Oh, no, they found him, didn't they? Loving the show, Jeremy and Isabel. Oh, I didn't know she was still here. She's been here for 20 minutes, but give her half the credit. I don't want to share my name. You just did, Mark T. Should I have said that? Oh, no. But my brother is 49 years of age. Good for you. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. In fact, drop your brother in it. You don't want to say what your real name is. He receives a total of he received £2,200 of tax-free benefits a month. I work and get just 600 quid more. The system is set up wrong. He has no incentive to work when he gets this level of income and support. It really frustrates me, as this guy, my brother, doesn't even think it's enough. Glenn Williams, oh, hello. Are you going to talk about a certain cup win yesterday or what? Great show, mate. Well, I just did. Tuna me. Shearer was... Never mind. Stork. Right? I have 3 Gen Z kids and all 3 are eager to work and earn money. It's because they were raised correctly and told not to be work shy. Quite agree, my friend. Carl, all these people that are claiming benefits that can work, why don't we just give them community service to clear up this goddamn messy country? Completely agree. Caroline, my Albanian friend who's been here for about 10 years and works extremely hard, told me that her old neighbour, who's also from Albania, claims approximately £3,000 a month because he's claiming for a disability. His wife doesn't work, but she goes out to work and gets paid cash in hand. They're saving the money to build a house in Albania. Now, you tell me whether that's right, my friends. Laura Donovan, related to Jason? No, I don't know. Jez, great show. Working isn't just about earning money. It's also about being appreciated and meeting new people, making new friends and going out with colleagues, basically enjoying yourselves whilst learning how life works. And finally, Colleen, hand on heart, JK, do you really believe Starmer and Streeting will sort out the benefit system? I think they will take off the genuine need to give to migrants. Maybe you're right and I've misjudged it. I think the sentiment is right. I want it sorted. Whether they're the people to do it, I don't know. 0344 419 1000. Former Tory MP Tom Hunt joins us now. Tom, a good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Good evening. Well, I'm actually very good because I'm a Newcastle United fan. So I've just seen that you've been discussing that.
I don't like Tories looking down on me. Where am I? Am I on your feet or something? I mean, you're towering above me, man. How tall are you? You look like the giant, man. What's going on?
Well, I'm not as tall as Dan Burn, anyway.
No. Listen.
This sort of.
Were you there?
Unfortunately, I was there 2 years ago when we lost 2-0 against Man United, but this time round I wasn't there. I was watching it at my childhood home, but it actually felt quite appropriate because as a 5-year-old, where I started supporting Newcastle. So
well, you've got into a different. You're in a different light to me now. My best friend and most of my best friends are all Newcastle fans, and I can't overemphasise to people today. The best fans, the loudest noise, the best fans, honestly, I swear to God, it means to that city more than you could ever dress up, doesn't it, Tommy? Unbelievable.
It does. I don't sound like a Geordie. My mum's a Geordie. All of my mum's side of the family are Geordies. So I wasn't given much of a choice as a 5-year-old. I thought I was there 10 points ahead at Christmas. I thought, well, I've got a great excuse to support the best team in England. It hadn't quite worked out like that, but, it's all the sweeter for a fact it was such a long way. And yesterday was a very special day for all Newcastle fans, and hopefully it's the first of many trophies.
I can check, because I got given many years ago by my two mates, a test of whether you are a true Geordie and a true Newcastle fan. Watch his face. Zoom the camera in. What do you think of Sunderland, Tom?
You know what?
Oh, no, you can't, man. What are you doing?
Incredible. This will make me be hated by fellow Newcastle fans, but obviously I don't like them. But my late granddad, was a Sunderland supporter. So I maybe don't, and I loved him very dearly. But no, as a football club, no. I mean, the Mackhams are a very bad team.
I'm going to tell you a story about a friend of mine. I can't possibly name him because I'll get told off. But he sold his car online. A really nice car, and he mistakenly gave one set of keys to the person who came to collect the car. He left them, I think, for somebody else because he was out. The guy paid the money went, and the guy set off down the main motorway out of Newcastle. And somebody rang him and went, mate, you know it's a Mackham that's bought it. And he literally lost his own, and he had the other key set, so he phoned up. He phoned up the company and immobilised the car, and the guy who was a Sunderland fan ended up on the side of the road for 3 hours waiting for the car to be mobilised. I can't exaggerate how much they hate each other. Not in a nasty way, but I mean, it will mean an awful lot to the Newcastle fans. So let's move on. There is so much to talk about, Tom, and I know that you're somebody who has a lot to say on many things. I started the programme by saying... and I don't think it says a lot about your party, to be honest. Starmer and Streeting, if they mean what they're going to say, they're right. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But the welfare system in this country, when you consider that 1 million foreigners are claiming benefits, and of that million, that's 40 different nationalities. We've got millions of young Brits not working because they suffer from anxiety. I'm not having a go at the genuine ones. And I understand the fear. I've had calls already from the genuine people who have mental illness and illness. But the system is it's screwing us financially, isn't it? People are playing the system and have done for years, and that needs dealing with, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, we've got to make work pay. We've got to have a welfare system there for people who are genuinely unable to work. But the problem is there's a very large number of people who are capable of working who are choosing not to work. And actually, no, it's not just bad for the taxpayer, but actually more often than not, it's bad for them as well. I think actually being incentivised to work, having a fulfilling role, having a raison d'etre is very important for somebody's sense of self-worth. And we've had a system that hasn't encouraged that. We simply can't afford it. We haven't got a choice. We have to make radical changes to a welfare system. You know, we've got all this, we're living in this increasingly uncertain world. We've got to put more money into defence, etc., etc. The money's got to come from somewhere. But, you know, do I trust Labour to actually do this in a meaningful way? I have serious doubts. You know, I listened to Wes Streeting yesterday, some of the comments that he had to make, and they sounded very sensible. But look, we're already seeing, you know, huge opposition within the Labour backbenches and also actually the Labour cabinet to some of these changes. So I suspect that some of the proposals will be watered down and it won't quite be what's been suggested today.
Listen, I'd be the last person to support Labour in any which way at all. And maybe the sound bites outlie are stronger than what will happen, and maybe it'll be like the Chagos Islands, it'll be a cop-out. But I have to ask you, and I know you get fed up with this, but I think it's all part of the process. You talk about there needs to be a radical change to the entire welfare system. The Tory party had 14 years, Tom, and people are texting us going, it's all well and good for Tories to say, but you must have known what was going on. Why do we live in a country, and I put this is from a person earlier who said, I would love somebody to be able to answer. Just paraphrasing it, you know, paid my taxes, never broken the law, never asked for anything. And then well, in fact, there was a call. Actually, there was a call. Can I actually play you this call? It was a clip of a call from a woman called Samantha, who cannot get Jack. Have a listen to this, Tom, from earlier.
Worked in the NHS for 39 years. I feel as if I'm a tombola on this. I had to give it up last year after being assaulted for the second time. Not entitled to any benefits at all. Retired, lived on my pension. Pensions ran out. Obviously, I get a pension every month. I'm applying for jobs. Nobody wants me. I can't get a job washing pots. I can't work in Morrison's. I've had to go to job seekers. They can't help me. Nobody wants me.
That's the reality, and yet people like that, and she's neither racist or far right, will look at the fact that we wipe the backsides of people coming into this country, Tom Hunt, like that, and they wonder why they're at the back of the queue. These are the people that whatever political party wins the next election need to understand and address, in my humble opinion.
Look, we shouldn't have people who are, you know, we should only be letting people into this country who are going to make a meaningful contribution and who are going to work. We should not have a situation where people are coming in and immediately claiming benefits, particularly if they've come here illegally.
So how did that happen under the Tories for 14 years then?
Well, I've been very clear about my view about the Conservatives' record on immigration, and I was very disappointed by aspects of our handling of immigration. What I'd say on welfare, I think that we came in 2010. The situation was not good at all. I think Ian Duncan Smith did some good work on reforming welfare. Unfortunately, a lot of that good work got wiped out by COVID and all the myriad of different ways in which COVID impacted people's desire to work, the use of mental health and as a reason for not working. And I have to say, there are people who have mental health challenges and who perhaps might not be able to work, but we know there's a large number of people. We've had people online teaching people how to go off sick and how to claim benefits.
But I mean, I think that's half the, from what I know, I think that is half the problem as well, excuse me, is that there is this fear amongst the electorate that whenever anybody talks about, we're going to cut benefits, either they don't describe it, discuss it, or explain it well enough. But genuine people like Samantha are fearing. We've had people on already today who are fearing for their lives, fearing for their incomes, when actually, whoever the party is, they need to strip the fat off. There's people... You know, you're a young man. I'm old enough to be your granddad, probably. When I was 16, you went to work or you went to college. You did not. It wasn't a career choice. It was a safety net for people who couldn't help themselves, and we were all happy to pay into that. It's become a way out. I don't believe that 25% of the younger generation should be able to say, oh, we're suffering from anxiety. Yes, you're right. There are millions, there are hundreds of thousands of people who genuinely can't work. But I'm afraid we have to be honest as a society and say there are hundreds of thousands who are too lazy to work, and they should not have their backsides wiped. That's how I see it.
Well, I don't disagree. And what was a safety net has almost become far more than that. And certain people think that it's their right not just to have basic support, but it's actually their right to have a very good quality standard of living, even though we're not prepared to work for it. And I think that is completely wrong. Somebody's paying for it, we're paying for it, and people have had enough. Those people who get up in the morning, scrape the ice off a windscreen and go and work, sometimes at 5, 6 in the morning. People want a basic sense of fairness. They want a sense about what you put in is what you get out. And they're not seeing that at the moment. They're seeing people taking a mickey. They're seeing people sometimes from abroad who haven't given in, haven't paid into the pot, taking the mickey, and they're angry. But they're angry that nothing seems to change, and that they hear lots of words but they don't see change. And I fear that that's exactly what we're going to get here. I don't think that the Labour government have got the mettle and the determination to see this through and to see off all the myriad of opponents they're going to get and the pushback we're going to get from some of these proposals.
Before I ask you about assisted dying, which I know is close to your heart, on a more light-hearted note, because we could talk about migration, the bloody benefit system on Newcastle United forever, Shakespeare is under attack now, because anything that's anything in this country gets destroyed by the woke left. I don't know if you've heard this story today. The birthplace of Shakespeare is to be given a woke anti-colonialism makeover. The bosses who run his house believe some items in the archives contain language or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic or otherwise harmful. They say it's a research paper which suggested his promotion as a writer of genius, because that's what the rest of the world thinks, benefits the ideology of white European supremacy. Basically, Shakespeare's a tosser as well. Thoughts, Tom?
I mean, I think all of these comments you just outlined and all the people promoting these comments are, absolute clowns. And you know what? If there are these people, I think Shakespeare was a great man. I think I'm very proud that he was a Brit.
Yeah.
If there are these people who are working in his archives and with Shakespeare's materials, if they're so affronted about his legacy and history, maybe they should go and do something else. And we should actually get people working with Shakespeare's materials, with his legacy, who are actually proud of Shakespeare and proud of who he was and the impact he made. Okay?
Sir John Redwood said to me earlier, why is it that the rest of the world thinks it's great and now we're in a position where our own country is bashing one of the greatest people ever in the history of this country? It's true, isn't it?
But you know what? I'm just absolutely... I think that sort of 95% of sensible people in this country would agree with the views that we've got on this, but yet this extreme minority of people who possess these ridiculous extreme views when it comes to Churchill and Shakespeare, they have a disproportionate impact and sway on what seems to happen in our public discourse.
I think it's time the 95% stood up and said, we're not listening to your woke rubbish. The Royal College, I know this is something very close to your heart before you go, the assisted dying movement that sort of started by Esther Ransom. The Royal College of GPs drops opposition to assisted dying and moves to neutrality. Thoughts on that?
Well, this is really interesting, right? So in 2019, the Royal College of GPs did a survey of its members, and 40% wanted the college to adopt a position of supported assisted dying. 47% opposed. They've just done a recent survey that says that barely 33% would want the college to adopt a position of support, and 47.6% oppose it. So actually, since 2019, there's been a swing of GPs against the principle of assisted suicide. So that's the reality of that GP survey. Yet Ken Leadbeater and some of her supporters, Dignity in Dying, are branding this as some sort of big movement in their direction. So but this kind of misleading manipulation of narratives, we've become used to that from Ken Leadbeater and supporters. It's very unfortunate. But actually, whether it's the Royal College of GPs, whether it's the palliative care sector, or whether it's the BMA, we're seeing that the vast majority of medical professionals are against assisted suicide, and it's wrong for Kim Leadbeater to try and portray it differently. The Royal College of GPs, they shifted their position to neutrality. I don't really know why they did that when their survey said that the bulk, that there was many more of their members oppose it than support it. But this assisted suicide bill, it's falling apart at the bill committee stage. She's rejected an amendment to safeguard Down syndrome people. She rejected an amendment to safeguard people with autism and those with anorexia. She removed the main safeguard, the High Court safeguard. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing MPs who voted for it at second reading thinking, you know what, this isn't about the principle, this is about the bill. This is about the bill, and I think many of the view that this is a dangerous bill that could make many vulnerable people, such as those who've got Down syndrome, autism, anorexia, diabetes, uniquely vulnerable. I really, really hope that next month it's rejected.
Listen, it's always great to have you on. That's a subject close to your heart. I'd love to hear from people what they think about the assisted dying bill. It's a month to go on that. Really, really appreciate it. Tom Hunt, Newcastle fans celebrating their first cup in 73 years, talking about the welfare cuts. I put to him, his government in 14 years didn't trim the fat, and he said, no, it's one of the reasons I got so frustrated. You hear that from a lot of Tories. Radical changes to the welfare system are needed. 6:20, we're live across the UK. 0344 499 1000. The reason I was trying to make a face at you, Ryan, is this studio smells like a takeaway restaurant. Somebody, somewhere in this building, is cooking, and for some reason it's coming through. I feel like I should be cooking a Chinese meal for everybody. Honestly, it's nuts. Have you smelt it in here, Jodie? It's stinking. 6:20.
1 in 4 young people considering quitting the workforce. Those are the ones who are actually in the workforce, by the way. Got more than 1 million young people who are not in work, not in training, not doing anything. Well, what are they living on? They shouldn't be entitled to a single penny. You're young and able-bodied. Oh, well, I've got anxiety and depression. Well, so is everybody on it's a miserable Monday morning. Who isn't feeling a bit depressed and miserable on a miserable Monday morning and it's cold and, people haven't got, much money in their pockets? Get over yourself, get to work. I've just got no time for it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
At 6:25, we're live across the UK. JK till 7. We found the culprits. It's kale and spinach green soup being eaten by a couple of people who work on Kev's show who have every right to eat it, and it's absolutely fine. But those of us in here, in a studio where it's come through the vent, are literally like that. Oh, God, but it's very healthy. Obviously, the drive time team just eat chocolate and burgers and drink beer. They're all into healthy stuff. Can't imagine Kev having a kale and spinach green soup. Although, no, I'm not going there. 0344 499 1000. Jamie Hooper says, I'm going to go on a cruise in a few weeks, Jez, and when I sail back into Southampton, I was wondering if I asked, do you think the government will put me in a free 4-star hotel for a couple of months? Probably. 0344 499 1000. We've got to do that competition into the next break, just so you're aware, OK? No, we're not doing it, no? Oh, right, OK, we're still trying to be professional, got a piece of paper. Ladies and gentlemen, delighted to have this man back. Probably one of the very few sort of slightly to the left people we're allowing on because he's brilliant. Former Labour advisor Matthew Torbit, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
No relationship to Ronnie Torbit?
No, not quite.
And a lot bigger?
Yes, much bigger.
I love talking to you. When we used to do this on breakfast, I love because you've always been very, very, very straight. Let's start with a potential Labour revolt over these welfare cuts. I don't think anybody would find it difficult to be taken. There was a call I had earlier from a woman who's been a nurse for 40 years, beaten up twice, had to retire, can't get anything, spent a pension, can't get benefits. Then we take a call from somebody who's housebound, who's terrified that they're going to be cut adrift. They listen to the Andy Burnhams who say, this is going to leave everybody in poverty. Nobody wants those people affected. But it is absolutely, is it not right to say that when you've got 25% of young people saying, I'm not going to work, I've got mental health issues, and you've got seemingly 1 million foreigners claiming benefits made up of 40 different nationalities, and we're skint, and genuine people are missing out, that our priorities are wrong, and we need to strip some of the fat off this mess and deal with it. I'm just put to Tom Hunt, the Tories did nothing about this. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, and I think, listen, you can argue, depending on your ideology, whatever you want, but, I'll be the first to admit that there has to be a trimming of sorts. Yeah. It's quite unsustainable where the benefits bill is. I think where some people might have an issue is to say that you cannot afford certain sickness benefits. And again, I think if you can work, you have a moral duty to. We all put into that national insurance pot and help each other out.
But this system has not made you morally... For many people, they don't morally have to work. It's become, to some, and maybe this is the wrong way to put it, Matt, but I keep saying it all day. You went to work or school. This is a choice now. If 25% of youngsters are going, oh, I've had my work criticised, I'm going to have 2 months off for anxiety. Do me a favour. We got to kick up the arse and have to go to work. You've had it hard in your life. You've grafted, right?
No, my great-gran, my nan, my mum all said the same thing. And I think we're at a point where they're probably going to be right. I think we're mollycoddling our young people into anxiety-ridden sort of individuals, and I think I noticed a change weirdly as a strange juxtaposition with the whole Madeleine McCann case. I think parents began to think they should or can try and protect their children from everything, and you can't. Kids will be kids, they'll get into scrapes, they'll fall out of trees, break their arms, we've all done it, right? We've all done it. I think the issue for me with this sort of stuff is if you're going to cut certain sickness benefits because you can't afford it, you cannot therefore still make the same argument that you're not going to touch the triple log, because because it's politically sensitive, that didn't stop them with winter fuel and actually would have brought in a lot less money.
Yeah, true.
But ultimately, that is a pension that, albeit one of the lowest in Europe, will rise with inflation in a way that sickness benefits will not now, judging by these consultations. And I think it's also a political sleight of hand, because what Rachel Reeves is trying to do to the Office of Budget Responsibilities is to go, look, I'm going to save £5 or £6 billion. Now, she can't prove that at the moment.
No.
And without it going to consultation, she cannot. And it will probably go to what is called a judicial review. Now, if that gets overturned, she's got a big hole in her budget after the 26th.
I could save her 18 billion. Explain to me, as a former Labour advisor, you can, whether or not he and Streeting see this through, explain to me why. I mean, we'll disagree about the Chagos Islands. We're giving them potentially £18 billion. They save £1.5 billion on freezing pensions. They're grabbing land from farmers. The whole veterans thing winds the hell out of me. There's £18 billion, and all I hear about is this black hole. Why are we giving Mauritius £18 billion allegedly and the bloody Chagos Islands? That doesn't make any sense at all.
I think that's the £18 billion question, because nobody seems to know. And again, I come back to, it's strange that this issue's reared its head. I remember this issue 15 years ago. The only MP that used to talk about it was Jeremy Corbyn as a lonely backbencher. If you look at
Full circle for JC.
Well, quite. but interestingly enough, the Chagosians don't want it. The vast majority of Chagosians that left there and came to the UK live in Crawley. They've all come out and said to the local MP, we don't want it to go to Mauritius. Mauritius have looked to do fishing licences there, and that water is beautiful and untouched because our army has kept it that way. I understand the difficulties people have with the fact that it could be handing things over to China and a security issue. The only reason I think that's maybe not the case, I still think it's bizarre that we're doing it and also paying them to do it, is we've had two presidents now, both in Biden and Donald Trump, that have gone, yeah, we're all right with it. So is it really that much of a security issue? It just seems bizarre, though, in a climate where we don't have any money. I also think I made the point to someone earlier today, for the amount of money that we're spending, and it's a very hot topic, on temporary accommodation for failed asylum seekers. I would like to see a change in the law, and I think this is how the left more broadly should argue about immigration, is about fairness. I absolutely think we have a bit of a moral duty to those that are genuinely fleeing persecution to try and assist where possible. What we have at the moment, because of the 1951 law, is the only way you can claim asylum in this country is to do it on British shores. So therefore, that is constantly why we're seeing this stream of people across the Channel, which first of all is a nightmare electorally, because it looks like you've not controlled your borders whatsoever as the government, and secondly, morally, people are dying in the Channel unnecessarily, and that's a waste of human potential. The Refugee Council show that we're going to be spending £1.5 billion per year, if we don't get a hold of it this year, on hotels and temporary accommodation, which is the exact amount that we are raising through winter fuel allowance cuts, coupled with the farmers' inheritance tax loophole. Now, what would be electorally sensible is for you to process these people offshore by updating that act, because I want to see a genuine difference. Isn't that what the Tories
suggested with Rwanda?
Yeah, but I think that really was stuffed.
I'm not sticking up for Rwanda, but the Italians, all of Europe's doing it. They're not doing a deal with Albania.
Well, I don't think it needs to be that far flung, because the French Interior Minister...
I don't understand why we can't do it in this country, but I take the point you're making.
No, the French Interior Minister...
Because they tell me that once they're... the French, they're getting £500 million a year. The point is that... Yeah, you bring them here and then they hear it. I hate to talk like this, but you talk about moral responsibility. I completely agree with you. I always have, right? But you cut your cloth. We are billions in debt. Our public services are creaking. And all those people, by the way, that Labour still believes, I think, that they're traditional working people that vote Labour. All the people, they don't. They're not. They feel eighth in the queue. They feel like they've never asked for anything. They've paid their stuff and they're waiting. You will not convince them that people coming from a tent on a beach in France is a war-torn area. You could with Ukraine, because they were being bombed by Russians. But unfortunately here, it's the waters, excuse the pun, have become muddied. And I believe the greatest deterrent to the United Kingdom, right, is to make it less attractive. I believe if you are saying to somebody... and by the way, I don't know about you, you married?
No.
Right, if I'm married and I've got my kids and they start bombing me and I'm fleeing, I'm taking my wife and kids with me. I'm not going to another country on my own, leaving my wife to be blown to smithereens. And when I get there, I'm not going to throw my passport in the water. I'm not saying they all do, but many, many, many do. The fact is the United Kingdom offers, within 24 hours, a GP and dental treatment and a hotel, and yet Beryl in Bury, who's worked all her life and can't have a hip replaced or can't get a bus to town, or the lady that rang earlier, that's what people genuinely, whatever their political persuasion, Matt, are starting to go, hold on a second, why am I so bloody irrelevant?
No, and this is where I think the left miss a trick, because the immigration argument is about fairness.
Yeah.
The 51 Act is from 1951. The world is a very different place. Immigration and refugees are very, very different from what they were then. The French Interior Minister in 2021 said to Boris Johnson, this doesn't work for either of us. We need to set up a safe and legal route. We will process these people at our shores, and if it turns out they're legitimate, they have every right to come to England because they've been cleared to be an asylum seeker. We'll do it on your behalf. Boris Johnson fell out with Emmanuel Macron that week and decided not to go to the convention that he put on for the rest of the EU leaders. This could have been solved years ago. I think it should. And what I mean by fairness is I want to see a cutting through of the difference between those who genuinely flee persecution and those that piggyback on the back of it as economic migrants, because that's not fair. If you want to come here as a migrant economically, you have every right to, but you've got to reply like everyone else and you've got to pay your money like everyone else, and then we're not losing out. And I think that's where...
And that's like the benefits argument. It's about explaining. It's about finding that cut-off line, because all the people that have phoned this show today and gone, I'm terrified. I've got... I mean, one guy has COPD, he's got cancer, he's had a terrible time, and at 54, and he's worried that this government, maybe also the Tories in the past, he's worried, are going to screw him. And he's looking at youngsters or whatever, and he's going, what's going to happen to me? It's about how you put this across. Of course, I've said it from day one. There are genuine people who have a right to come to this country. But there are hundreds of thousands, mate, who don't, who are never going to pay, who are criminals, who are taking advantage. And, of course, the rhetoric ramps up, and one side says we should stop the boats and they get called racist, and the other say, let's let everybody in. They're all poor people in France. They're not poor people in France. The truth is, it's a hard argument, isn't it? It's
No, of course it is, and that's the
problem.
problem.
I think that, you know, the whole thing about morality and, you know, humility, rather, and England has a moral duty and all that. I think that also changes when we're skint. I think we're skint.
Well, we're seeing it now with sort of Ukrainian fatigue and people going, we're still spending billions and billions. But as you say, Beryl from Bury can't get in the GPs, or you know, I've been left squandered. People feel forgotten about, and this is in large part since 2016 with the Brexit vote. It's also a vacuum of political leadership that people can't look up to, and I think that also plays into the young people that we see are the least patriotic generation we've had in many years. I think part of that is because the social contract is broken. What is there to be proud about? What is there to go out?
Because the woke left are trying... I mean, today they're trying to destroy Shakespeare. What's your view on that? Apparently Shakespeare's a white supremacist, and a lot of the stuff in his archive contained language or depictions that are racist, sexist, homophobic or otherwise harmful. Saeed phoned me from Croydon and went, at what point are we going to stop destroying everything that's British?
I just think that... I always had this theory
one of the greatest things that ever's come out of England, William Shakespeare.
No, and listen, the world was very different 500 years ago. I've read bits of Shakespeare, not all of it. I couldn't say if any of it was the above, but what I will say is that I think to sort of be woke in that sense, or that term that we throw around, you've got to be quite privileged, because I've got more important things to be worried about than whether Shakespeare needs decolonising or not. I've got more important things to think about than the Middle East, potentially, and that'll offend people. There's stuff here at home that needs sorting out first before we help everybody else. And also, it's that old adage, you put your oxygen mask on before you help everyone else, because otherwise you're no use. We're running out of oxygen in this country, and we're not going to be able to help anybody else if we're carking it, basically.
And that's and therein, brilliant, love it, massively love it, because that's the point. And then people throw out phrases like, you know, charity begins at home, and they get slagged off even more. But if you are struggling, if the very basis of the country that apparently, yes, rightly still wants to show the world that it cares, is creaking because it can't get its own bloody lives in order, if you like, for want of a better phrase, that's absolutely spot on. Quickly before we finish, great to have you back, by the way. What do you make of the first 9 months of Keir Starmer?
I mean, it's what I thought. The optics are terrible. We have professional politicians, and unfortunately, you know, I speak as I do because I've had a life and have struggled before this. You don't have to be on the streets as I was, but you've had a real life. You've had real jobs. You might have signed on. You know, you might have had back and forths, nowhere to go. We haven't got any politicians like that at the moment. On all sides. This is, on all sides. I think if I was to give it an out of 10, listen, you're underwhelming at a 4. You've got to have hope.
Disappointed you?
Yeah, but no, because I expected it. I expected.
Did you?
Well, I remember saying on election night, there's a good chance Nigel Farage could be Prime Minister in 5 years, and everyone laughed at me because they'd not been on the doors where I had and seen the popularity go like that. And I think the other thing is, my worst fear was that it would be further managed decline rather than change. People voted for change, not to make themselves poorer, not to hurt the most vulnerable, not to start making Beryl at Christmas freeze to death. Nobody voted for this stuff. None of it was in the manifesto. And what my whole political ethos is, if you invest in people, they'll invest in the country. And what Rachel Reeves didn't do when the interest rates were low is borrow to invest for a long-term future. What we're having at the moment is surviving day to day and trying to get through that for the next 4 years.
I'd forgotten how brilliant it is to have you, mate. You're always welcome. The Matthew Torbit, former Labour advisor. Thank you so much indeed, my friend. 22 minutes to 7 o'clock, 22 minutes away from Kev O'Sullivan, his asylum and his vegetable soup eating people, workers, colleagues, whatever, can't say workers, good God, I get into trouble. 0344 499 1000, Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
He's back, the only way to wake up. Morning glory with the legend that is Mike Graham. Back tomorrow morning from... Why did I do that? From 6 a.m, only here on Talk. Massimo. Why did I do that? Or Massimo from Great Bowden, which is just outside near Manchester, of course. Good evening, Jez. Great show as always. Do you think it's a coincidence they are freezing pensioners, cutting benefits of the most severely disabled and rushing through the assisted suicide bill? Anyway, have a great evening. Thank you, Massimo. You've made me think. Amanda in London about the assisted dying. When a person is told they are terminally ill, they should be able to put their wishes in writing for assistance to end their lives. I mean, it's such an issue, this. There are many people who think that people should be able to make that decision. There are others who feel very, very uncomfortable about it. What is it? 18... There is a subject that I've been dying to do on St. Patrick's Day, is to ask the question, I don't know if you've heard about this, but when Biden was in power in America, Prince Harry applied to be an American citizen. He was given citizenship. I think he was given a visa on his wife's visa. Then this group of people jumped up and down and said, he shouldn't be allowed in. He's admitted in Spare that he took drugs. And everybody jumped up and down. And everybody thought that Trump was going to give him a hard time. But Trump the other day said, oh, he's got enough to deal with because he's got that dreadful wife. But apparently we find out today that Prince Harry's US visa records are to be released after a court ruling. Is he going to be thrown out? Robert Jobson, the royal editor. A very good afternoon, dear boy. How are you?
I'm very well, very well.
Did you make it to Cheltenham or not, Jobbo? What was going on? I was looking for you.
I went away. I should have got to Cheltenham, but I didn't, unfortunately.
I've got a royal story for you, but it makes me sound like an idiot, so I shan't tell you on air. But I was sharing cocktails with a member of the royal family last Thursday.
Oh, yes, you do.
Bet you can't guess which one it was.
Was it? I'm going to say, could it be Zara Phillips? Or
God, how does he get that straight away? I've known her for years. What are you like, John? Right, listen, Prince Harry. So I've got a theory which you'll laugh at. I think that the Americans are going to throw him out, but I think he's going to be happy because I think he's going to be able to say, I'm leaving you, you odious woman, to your ridiculous new series, and I'm heading back to the shores where I'm going to be reinvigorated by the British people. Thoughts?
Well, I don't think he will be thrown out. I think the president's already seen the papers, and I'm sure that whatever the ruling is, it's going to be sort of fudged over because the last thing although Harry's always wanted to be a private citizen and have all the same struggles as I and you and I would have if we falsely filled out a visa application, it's not going to happen to him. I should imagine that it'll just be fudged and he'll get away with it. But the reality is, it's not, as I said, shown himself to be the sharpest tool in the shed by writing all that stuff in the book when he'd actually filled out a visa application, which we presume he didn't put all that stuff in.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We presume, but if that's true, how ludicrous is that? You know that whole thing about them about we're not interested in privilege, we're not interested in that, we want to be real people. You and I would not have got into the United States of America. They would have said, you've lied on that form, you're either going to be deported or you ain't getting in.
And what's more, any future applications would be looked upon very badly, and anything that every time we went into in the country would be sort of given a whole lot of rigmarole. So no, look, the reality is he hasn't shown himself to be too bright. But I can't imagine that the president or the new administration really need to make this a fight when they're trying to resolve Ukraine, Palestine, everything else that's going on in the world. I think that they'll probably fudge this one.
You were away or something was going on. We were both very busy. He's been described, Harry, as not too bright. But let's talk about, did you get a chance to see what I described? And it got quite a response on social media. Did you see Meghan's new programme, which I said, and I feel I have every right, having done daytime television for 15 years, to say it was the biggest load of crap I've ever seen in my life. The most affected, false, ridiculous piece of television. Honestly, ludicrous.
But who are the people? I mean, what amazes me, unless they're just in it for the clickbait and the reaction, the fact that Netflix gets mentioned, who on earth commissions this stuff? I mean, that's what I'm amazed at, because somebody really, if it's not getting the figures, and it can't be getting the figures, then it's a complete commercial disaster. And so, if it's not going to make in the television, as you know, as well as I, it's a ruthless business. And if you don't get the figures, you're out. So,
I mean, presumably, you would say, would you not, if you were making a television programme, we're one of those, you need an audience and then you can sell adverts. Who's going to buy an advert? I'm still recovering from, as a parent, wondering how much I failed all of my children, that I've not made them a forest of fruits with cottage cheese or yoghurt as the clouds. Honestly, mate, I literally nearly fell off my chair.
I don't actually keep a straight face. But also, I mean, I've met Harry before, although he's not necessarily the smartest guy. He's not stupid. And the fact is, he must look at this and realise the reaction this sort of stuff's going to get. I mean, it really is laughable. I mean, people sort of, there's been some great sort of spoofs about it, haven't there, where people just putting a piece of brown paper, over the top of a jam pot. The whole thing is ridiculous. And I think that if this is really where we're at a few years down the line, what are they going to be doing, when Prince William is king? Because certainly you're not going to get any handouts from him.
And there you see Kate this morning, St Patrick's Day, with the Irish Guards as a patron, drinking a pint of Guinness. You put money behind the bar and you think to yourself, just the pulse, the fingers on the pulse. And I'm with you. I don't know, right? I don't know if he sits... I mean, you said earlier he's not the brightest spark. He has to have no brain cells at all if he doesn't realise that most of the world is going, your wife is a joke, man. And maybe, just maybe, we should be generous. Maybe he does, and maybe he is looking for a way out. Maybe he's actually convincing Trump himself to throw him out the country.
No, I think he's going to have to stay because he's going to get back in again. But the fact is, if this is their life for the next 30 years, 20 years, you know, I hope that the king makes sure his second son is looked after, because I cannot see them earning, you know, any money whatsoever. I can't see anybody being in the slightest bit interested in them. They're even more, you know, towards the end of Edward VIII's life, you know, he was the king. They were seen as joke figures. You know, they were sponging off society people, and just to get, you know, free hotel rooms. I mean, that's what ended up to a former king who started to... And
I think you're right. And I think there is a danger that they will become, if they're not... I mean, they are figures of fun already. She is, undoubtedly, and he will be dragged down by that. And in the end, it just becomes this whole circus. But we'll see what happens with the visa records to be released as part of the court ruling. Any other royal news at all, my friend?
Well, no, I've been busy working around a new book, but I mean, I do think that actually the king has been, you know, we know that they're off to Italy, and we know that that's going to be quite an interesting trip. We don't know exactly what's happening with the Pope at the moment, but I do think that the king, you know, has pretty much rallied recently, and along with William and Kate and Camilla, have been doing a very good job. So I do think, actually, despite all of this puff that's been going on the other side of the Atlantic, actually, since all the dramas of the chemotherapy, you know, of the cancer diagnosis and everything, I actually think the royal family have been put on a pretty good show, and actually have really sort of risen to the challenge of what they're supposed to be doing, and have sort of settled into a reasonable place now. Whereas I think that, and all of the controversy of Harry and Meghan, they have become, if you like, not necessarily maybe figures of fun, but sort of almost showbiz personalities.
Yeah, but with respect, and we said this before, that's what they wanted. They didn't want to be royalty, they wanted to be celebrity. And when you want to become a celebrity, they will write stuff about you, they will judge you, and you will be in the spotlight. And that is what I don't think... That for me is a dichotomy with those two, because they want to slag off the royal family whilst retaining the privileges in a celebrity world. It doesn't work like that. Robert, really good. Let us know when that new book's out. Robert Jobson, the amazing man, the royal editor. They're on Talk Drive. What is it, 10 to 7? 10 minutes away from Kev O'Sullivan. Petri Hoskins here from 10 o'clock. And the legend that is Mike Graham back with Morning Glory tomorrow from 6. This is Talk.
talk a good game, but this is what I was saying. Even Wes Streeting at the weekend, he even came on talk extraordinarily, which was a first, I think, for him as a minister. And at the end of the day, he can say he's going to do all sorts of things, but unless he actually does them, it doesn't mean anything.
That's where the sort of trust in voter thing comes back, is again, 14 years of the Tories talking a good game, saying they're all of the stuff, and never actually delivered. You talked about that poll earlier, I heard you talking about, that showed that Nigel Farage was, on the march in 300 constituencies. They can't afford to talk a big game and then not deliver.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About time to get some calls and some texts on. Tim says, as in Suffolk, all these woke numpties forget one thing, Jez. The United Kingdom stopped slavery. Quite right. Carl's in Derbyshire. That young fella, Ms. Matthew Torbit, has just summed up the immigration crisis perfectly in one line. We have to put our oxygen mask on first before we can help others. I've never heard anything by anyone so accurate. I think it's La in Norfolk. I could be wrong, but the typing's crap. JK, I'm not one of the most... I'm not of the same political persuasion as Matthew Torbit, but he is by far and away the best Labour commentator there is. How nice to have somebody on the left who is refreshingly honest. 6 minutes to 7 o'clock. To the phone lines. Chris in Cambridgeshire, you've literally got 2 minutes. Go.
Hi, Jeremy. First of all, when I was 14, which is a long while ago...
Sounds it.
I was born and bred on a farm.
Oh.
And my parents took me from school just before I set my exams, and I was set to work on the farm. And I got paid the generous sum of 13 shillings a week.
See, Jody, just coming in the studio, you see, with a cup of tea, 13 shillings a week this man used to get. You get hundreds and thousands of pounds.
And I had to do that until I was 18 and old enough and tell them what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which I then left under my own steam, left home in actual fact as well, and made my own life. But that's what you did then.
Do you think that, I mean, this is a report out today that says that 25% of kids, teenagers, younger people, I should say, everybody's young compared to me, are not willing, would rather live on benefits because it's very stressful and full of anxiety working for a living. I mean, we just got a size 10 right up our backside. I'd have been out the front door.
They need a damn good kick up the behind.
I completely agree, Chris.
Far too many books have been read about how to bring up your child.
You don't need to read a book. It's just common bleeding sense, isn't it? Thank you, my friend. Really good to speak to you. Oh, dear. Carl's in Liverpool. Hello.
Hi, Jeremy. You all right?
I am, because tuna me. Or am I not allowed to say that? How crap.
Oh, congratulations to them.
Are you a Liverpool fan?
I am, yeah. We spoke before, yeah.
Crap yesterday. You didn't turn up,
We were awful. We were awful.
Well done, though, for congratulating Newcastle. I love it. Right?
They played very well. They deserved it. Let's be honest. We can't get away from that.
Good man, Carl. What you got for me, kiddo?
Yeah, so the youth of today, I've got a 14-year-old son. I'm ex-military. I think what we have is a case of lasyitis within the from 16 and upwards into mid-20s, even maybe late 20s. I think it's just, for me, if you're not working or in college from the age of 16, you're in military service doing 3 years.
I just fear that apathy that we talk about a lot just spreads. I'd love your take on this, because, again, some people think this is wrong. I think this is so down to parental... honestly, I would never have not been allowed to graft. That was it. That was just the way it was. Are you going to let yours sit around and do nothing? No, you're not, are you?
No, my mum worked 3 jobs, Jeremy, when I was a kid growing up, and that was drummed into us. You get out, you get a job. I joined the military at 16. Had a fantastic time, met some amazing people, and I just look at the kids today. I mean, the Army's gone woke, the MOD's gone woke. I've seen videos of it, it's just astonishing. But these kids I mean, it's not so much a kick up the backside. They need life lessons. They need to understand that, we're being told on a daily basis that our history is worthless. We gave everyone everything. The Industrial Revolution, English language, abolished slavery and stuff like that, but we're still led to believe that we should be ashamed of it. These kids that are growing up now must think it's an embarrassment to serve your country, when it's not. That it should be classed as a really, something honourable to do.
Completely. Could not agree.
That, but I agree with you where the parents are, a lot of parents are not active in their children's lives anymore. I see it every day. They're on the streets, they're on the phones, they're on the bikes. They've got no plan, these parents, for the kids. They're just...
I've been slagged off in the past because I've said I've been quite strong on it all, and that's the way I am. And my kids... Yeah, look, my Vic said to Henry this morning, he's 16 in 10 days. When do your exams finish? He said June the 12th. She said, you'll have a job by July the 1st, or there'll be nothing all summer. And he'll have a job. That's it. That's the way it is.
That's the way it should be, Jeremy. That's, our children, as I said, I've got 3 boys. My eldest is 14. He's a really good kid. And, I've told him, and this is my worry for his future and my other 2, is that he gets a good job, he gets trade. What is there left of the UK for him to get a good career in? My advice to anyone who's got a trade or who's young enough to go out and experience the world and get a trade and go and work is leave. Leave the country behind, because in 4 years there may not be anything left here.
Listen, I could talk to you forever. I love the magnanimous approach. Thank you. We've got 1 minute. Kev O'Sullivan, Fulham battered Spurs. Well done.
I know, I was there.
Newcastle, Carabao Cup champions.
West Ham, not so good, though. Yeah.
All right, don't start.
Oh, you didn't lose.
I don't want to know about your show. I want you to know why you allow your staff to eat green there that comes